Today, we're going to be watching this video called How Lies, Stalking, and Slander Ruined This VTuber's Career. If I'm recognizing this correctly, this looks like the ChaChaChilla situation. I am familiar with it because I did end up watching the Muujin video on it. So I don't want to watch a video I've already seen on stream. So today we're going to be watching female Muujin, otherwise known as Rima Evenstar. So this is going to be an interesting story because this is actually just kind of completely fucking insane. I am definitely excited to see Rima's take on the whole thing. If I'm completely wrong and this is not the ChaChaChilla situation, I guess I'm going to be learning even more than I thought. So let's just get right to it. Oh, and of course, those watching on stream, the link to the video will be in the chat. For those watching after the fact on the highlights channel, the link will be in the description down below. Just a quick reminder that you're watching the Highlights channel right now. If you want to catch these streams live or want to check out my more high-effort analytical content, consider checking out the main channel linked in the description.
Few people ever repeat the same mistakes over and over again. One would say mistakes are simply the experiences that help us learn. And that would be true in most cases, except if you're on the internet. More specifically, in the VTuber community where...
Okay, so I know I haven't even let her finish a full sentence yet, but I have a little bit of a conspiracy theory. I feel like, and I know I'm saying this as somebody who's like VTuber adjacent, and who plans to eventually get a VTuber model, but I feel like VTubers all have like a microchip inserted into their brains, and that's whatever, and then they're given an arbitrary limit to how popular they're allowed to be. Once they hit that level and exceed it, the microchip activates and they are just compelled to destroy their careers in the most catastrophic way possible. It just happens way too frequently. So many VTubers just completely tank their careers in the stupidest fucking ways. I don't understand any other explanation for it. It is just... I will say VTuber drama is like my reality TV. It's so silly. It's so stupid. I just can't... It's like watching a car wreck in slow motion. You just can't look away. I mean, if we're thinking of the same thing, with Iron Mouse, it doesn't look like that was that bad. I think she just kind of made a bit of an ass of herself. I don't think it's actually that serious. I don't think it's going to really hurt her career, but... Unless there's some other thing that she did that I'm not familiar with, because I don't really follow her too closely. But yeah, it's just VTubers just...
Individuals get to recycle themselves through cycles of death and reincarnations into new personas like it's a freaking Buddhist cycle. If you've been a fan of this channel, you've seen this cycle repeat itself through multiple shady individuals that we've covered. And this is the case
and another thing I will mention that I find very interesting is... You know, VTubers do kind of have a unique ability to reinvent themselves with the, the past and future lives thing, where they just basically create a whole new persona, new character in a way that, somebody who is just showing themselves can't. I mean, faceless YouTubers have done that in the past, although it's a little bit harder to get away with just because it is a little bit harder to grow a personality if you don't have a visual identifier. But the thing that I find interesting is so many of these VTubers are able to reinvent themselves just because they're trying to escape some sort of drama or scandal or whatnot. But they're able to grow multiple new channels from scratch. Like, they actually have some sort of affinity with content creation, and they're able to actually find success from scratch multiple times, which is indicative of the fact that they actually know what the fuck they're doing. They're able to build an audience like that. And they still continue to fuck it up. That is that's amazing to me because, content creation is something, it's a learned skill. It's not all luck. There is a luck component to it, but it is not all luck. And the fact that people are able to actually figure it out, but not figure it out enough to not fuck it up is amazing to me.
The VTuber we will be covering in this video. Funny thing is, these individuals almost always exclusively end up outing themselves because they just cannot help themselves by causing drama. And when they do, they inadvertently open a Pandora's box they can no longer close, because once you put something out there in the internet, it starts taking a mind of its own, and it inadvertently becomes its own monster. This is the insane story of how ChaChaChilla exposed herself because she simply could not keep her mouth shut.
And then another factor, I don't know if Rima is going to go into it. But another factor when it comes to this whole starting drama for no reason thing is that it is also my opinion that most internet dramas can be managed. Like, I believe you can tank like 99% of dramas, and there's only a small like subset of the things you can do that are actually career ruining on their own. Most of the time when people have a career ruining moment, it's not the thing they did, but it's their response to the backlash. And if you handle it right, which I think 90% of the time, just ignoring it is going to usually be the correct way to go, but also just don't actively make it worse. In ChaChaChilla's case, I think that's definitely applies here. But yeah, it's not just starting shit for no reason. It's just making an already bad situation worse for yourself.
First, because trust me, this ride will require fuel, a quick message from today's sponsor. I am
And we'll
now
watch the sponsor.
officially partnered with Gamer Subs. They make the best sugar-free energy drinks. They taste great, no crash, and it actually makes you feel good, right?
And I will just, as always, I will of course let the ad play, but I just want to be clear that this is Rima's endorsement, not mine. I actually have never tried Gamer Subs, although I haven't actually heard any bad things from anybody who has. So from all accounts, it appears to be actually a pretty good product. I plan on trying it eventually, but yeah, but just to be clear, this is Rima's endorsement, not mine, although I've heard good things.
Now you can get 10% off using my code CLOP on anything you love. Your favorite VTuber waifu cup, their energy formula, the caffeine-free version if you can't handle the jitters, or their sleep aid formula if you're an insomniac like me. That stuff has generally helped me snooze better at night, so I can crash out all over again the next day. And if you just want to try it first, click the link in the description
I like the little
below
PNGs
for
she
free
has
samples.
to highlight the
They have no
emotional
shipping
side of
charge,
her
no credit
ad.
cards, nothing, just completely free, and they ship worldwide. Use code CLOP to support the channel. And
This
now,
video is a couple
back
months old, so
to
I
the
don't know
video.
if that
To
promotion
understand
is
how
still
everything
valid.
escalated, we have to start at the beginning. This entire situation actually started when ChaChaChilla tried to expose an agency VTuber called Adfree, a member of Sock's VTuber agency, for what she believed was an ableist comment. I tried to talk to Flork about one of his talents having a habit of calling people inferior and how that can seem to disable people.
Okay, and it's real. One thing it's kind of funny. So I actually do know what the scenario is. Again, I've mentioned I've seen Mujin's video on it, which is why we're watching female Mujin today. But this already kind of seems like it's going to be a whole bunch of nothing just from this tweet. It's so much dumber than it looks. For those of you who have no idea what's going on, and as somebody who did not really know who pretty much anybody involved in this was ahead of time, it is so much stupider than you think it is.
However, he blocked me and said not to bring up my personal issues with his talents. I believe calling somebody inferior is demeaning, as it's historically used context. AdFreeVT called us that. If you support Sock's VTuber agency, aka SVA, this is what you're supporting.
And another thing that I do think, in general, it's a red flag when somebody goes after, the employment. When criticizing somebody, generally speaking, there's definitely instances where applying the pressure can be used in just not trying to keep people held accountable for whatever it is you're trying to hold them accountable for. And I don't think even this scenario is serious enough to warrant anything even remotely like that. But what I'm trying to get at is, while that there are times when it can be appropriate to bring up the employment, when people do that, it is often a red flag that this situation is essentially being grifted. So, and you have no idea what this is about? Oh, it's very stupid, trust me.
Okay, so after that tweet, things were already getting kind of messy. And of course, that's exactly when Flork, the owner of Sock's VTuber agency, decided to step in and reply to her himself. Yes, I did snap at you in DMs because you were told not to contact me anymore prior to this. Lucia's team investigated the first piece of evidence you showed them regarding Adfree, and it was not even them speaking. Their team there gave you the statement on what was happening. It was roleplay in a Minecraft faction roleplay, and I will wholeheartedly back my talent that they did no wrong, especially in a 4-second out of context clip you originally showed.
Now, I will say, from what I've heard, Flork is apparently a nice person behind the scenes. I've never met him. I don't really know much about him, but that's what I've heard. And I don't also really know anything about his agency, about Socks. I generally have a pretty negative opinion of VTuber agencies just as a whole, just because the big ones all seem to implode and all seem to have history of treating their talents very poorly. I'm not about that. And also just in general, I don't really see the value proposition. Most of the time, you either lose the rights to your own intellectual property, or they're essentially piggybacking on the work you already did to grow as a personality. So I just don't really see the value proposition of a VTuber agency. But I've also heard that Socks does treat its talents well. If so, that's excellent. I hope they continue in that fashion. But I will say I do like that Flork, who is, I believe he owns his agency, the Socks. I do like to see him sticking up for his talent and not caving to public pressure and saying, if they actually didn't do anything wrong, some agencies will throw their talent under the bus just for PR reasons. But it's nice to see somebody standing by their talent when they believe they've done nothing wrong.
Treating guys.
They're wild.
Guys, they're like...
Oh, wait. And so, yeah, we're going to show this clip. This is the clip that made ChaChaChilla crash out on ad-free. See if you can decipher this, because even after it's been explained to me through other videos, I genuinely cannot, make sense of it. I cannot deconstruct it. I cannot figure out what was supposedly happening.
Clip you originally showed.
Treating guys.
They're wild.
Guys, they're like...
Gotta give them a
Yeah,
pass.
what's happening with that?
Brains are a little smaller.
Dude, that's gonna... Oh my god,
I
her...
was never a wilder. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's true. I never...
And then
Yeah, that clip ended up inadvertently destroying a VTuber's career. I told you it was fucking stupid.
he adds, you also stated here other people do it, so why focus on me/SVA? Was it before I told you not to message me any longer as of early October? Then Flores pointed out why he even stayed up that late in the first place. He basically says he only...
Again, I told you this was a really stupid situation. I might have been underselling it because, and to be clear, when I say it destroyed a VTuber's career, it didn't destroy the career of anybody in that clip. It destroyed the career of the person complaining about it because things just kind of snowballed. It is so just exciting for me to hear about this scenario, this situation from a different perspective, because I know how silly this is, and as I said, stupid VTuber drama is my reality TV. I don't know, there's something just... I get like a degree of schadenfreude from watching idiots do stupid things, and just... Especially since in this scenario, the actual harm being caused to anybody but the person themselves is minimal. So, this is fun to me, even though it might make me a bad person.
only did it because he knew she was going to try to drop something while he was asleep. And he even shows the screenshot where she straight up asked him if he's usually up at that hour, almost as if she was trying to plan this while he was sleeping. So yeah, he kind of sussed her out, he saw it coming, stayed awake for it, and sure enough, she did post it super late like he expected. Listen, we knew...
And this is funny, they're playing these stupid fucking mind games, trying to post this while he's asleep so he can't respond immediately. This is so stupid. Like, they're going like full psychological operation on this dumb bullshit. It's so much fun.
We're going to fucking do this because you did this shit before to other people. I knew you were going to drop this late. Maybe you thought I'd be asleep so you could get an edge on me. I specifically stayed up because we knew you were going to do this. I don't know why the focus on me is so hard, especially if your problem was ad-free. I don't want anything to do with you. You said that was your last post. Okay, I just want to add one more bit of context. She knew I do not stay up late and chose to drop it when I wasn't around. And then he shows the screenshots proving this.
Yeah, Death Note type stuff. This is basically why this type of VTuber drama is so much fun to me. Because they're essentially, like, imagine a really, like, chuny anime where, like, where it takes itself way too seriously. It's really edgy. Like, it has all this stuff that's, like, really trying to puff itself up, but it looks kind of ridiculous from the outside. This is basically the real life version of that. And it is just, it's so much fun to me.
But things don't just stop here. One of his talents, Yomi Queenly,
I don't know
then
this
steps
person
up
either.
and answers his tweet. Oh hey, it's the person who kept following me around all of Offkai after I told them to stop and I had to warn security over her. The person who was overstepping my boundaries and touching my arm in comfort over and over when I told them not to touch me and spoke at me like I was less than them, saying I was so brave for going to Offkai as a trans person rather than talking to me like a normal person.
And yeah, this is another thing. A lot of the people who tend to try to start shit for whatever reason often have skeletons in their own closet, which just makes things worse. Like I might be too normal for these people, which is saying something because I am not fucking normal. But I feel like if I was going to be a shit stirrer and just try to cause problems, I would want to make sure that I don't have anything in my own history that could actually look really bad for me. And if I did, I would keep my fucking head down so that I don't start shit and I don't want people to look into me. But I might just make too much sense. A lot of the people who are involved in this type of thing where they actually start all this drama for no fucking reason, I think a lot of them are like genuinely mentally ill, so that could be a factor.
You don't get to play the victim when you've hurt and disrespected so many people, and many know about your PL and the terrible things you've done there too. All I can do is wish you find the help you need, step away from the internet, find professional help, and breathe. Maybe the world will be brighter for you one day where you don't find a need to validate your existence by trying to bring down others. Then HR-chan, another indie VTuber, also steps in to confirm Yomi's story. But the thing about stories like this is, once one voice comes forward, others always follow. And
yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's these things snowball. Because like the original cancellation attempt that this person did, that ChaChaChilla tried, on its own, that would not destroy her career. That she'd get some shit for it, but that would kind of be it. It's the fact that everything snowballs. The stuff she's done in the past gets revealed. Her reactions to things get the situation even worse. It's always the snowball. It's never the initial rolling of the snowball. It's always what it ends up becoming.
And that's when Apollo, a corpo VTuber from Mito's agency, steps in with not one, but 2 tweets of her own. Girl, sit down. You literally blackmailed me last year. I can't even go to cons normally because of you.
Yeah,
Let me give you more context. ChaChaChilla TTV, aka Bunny Elisu. I was nice, respectful, and tried to be a friend at the time. I wanted you to get help. You harassed me and my friends and so many others for years. You have doxed IRL faces / names, bullied, spread lies, and got blacklisted from Mythos for a good reason.
And I will also mention, for those who are not familiar, I imagine most of the people watching this are, but this is like a big no-no in general, especially for VTubers. Like a lot of people are VTubers specifically because they value their privacy. Personally, I use an avatar not because I really care if people know what I look like. I mean, I have actually shown my face in the past, and my name is out there, so that's not why I do this. I just like essentially the creative freedom to decide my own image. But a lot of people do value their privacy to an extreme degree, so showing faces and names is honestly even worse among the VTubing community than it would be among other faceless content creators. So, like, it's worse than it sounds, essentially.
Gave them a 10+ page document. When we didn't give you what you wanted, you did revenge.
Okay, and I will say, this is something I learned that is secondhand. And I'm just doing this to basically, in the interest of truth and trying to be devil's advocate, trying to be as fair as possible. From what I've heard, and this is like secondhand, so I don't know for sure if this is true, and I feel like it would be a little gross to actually like dig into this, so that's why I'm not actually fact-checking myself. From my understanding is that Apollo has done NSFW stuff in the past, and the supposed revenge porn was spreading that NSFW stuff that she put out there. So while that might be a faux pas, that might be a shitty thing to do, I don't think that actually qualifies as revenge porn, assuming every fact that I've heard is actually correct. So I do think it needs to be fair, because actual revenge porn is like a serious crime, and I don't really like conflating something else to that. So I do have to push back on that one little thing. And that's, again, assuming that what I've heard is true, which there's a chance it might not be.
Every single time I had something awesome happen to me, you got butthurt with my success early on. You shared it everywhere and people saw that side of me. You took my power, and just 2 days before TwitchCon, where I wanted to see people for the first time, my first event, I had to listen to so many people saying they are on my side and that they saw it. I didn't want to hear that I didn't want that. But you didn't stop there. You kept harassing me for months on end because I wasn't flinching in public. You had to make videos, accounts, and spreading it all over Mythos. I didn't feel safe anymore. I was so overwhelmed I couldn't even stream properly because of you. I lost a lot of things and it harmed me. Suddenly, her previous life had also been a nerf, and followed by those serious accusations of doxing, revenge, harassment, and bullying.
And yeah, I will say, even with the caveat I gave earlier, where based on what I've heard, I don't think revenge porn is an accurate descriptor of what happened, at the same time, that doesn't diminish the fact that what she did in her past life was genuinely an awful thing to do. Like, that's just, and that's just goes to show the snowball, where it was a little cancellation attempt she tried, and then she kind of crashed out a little bit. Then people started talking about other bad shit she's done, and then her past life kind of got brought to the public focus. It just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and it will continue to get worse, because again, I know what's about to be discussed. It gets so much worse. It's so stupid, but again, it's never the initial action that causes these downfalls. It's always the snowball.
And yet, this was still only the beginning of this roller coaster. Indie VTuber Miyu then steps in to clarify that she was the person in the clip and explains the context behind it. Because, that's right, the VTuber that ChaChaChilla was trying to go after, ad-free, wasn't even the one saying those things in the clip that she thought was the ableist comment in the first place.
And that makes it even funnier, where even the tiniest sliver of potential legitimacy this whole situation might have had is just not there, because the person she was trying to cancel wasn't even saying the things she was trying to cancel them for. It's so fucking hilarious.
You cannot make this up. Just in case this gets turned on me because this is me in the clip shown here, I was making an ironic joke about my own character because I was the dummy in a room of smart people, as she started off as a wilder before switching to the scientist. In no way would I call anyone out of character small-brained.
Yes, they keep reacting and don't let it go. That's the lolcow formula, or specifically like the bad person lolcow, somebody who does a bad thing and then just makes it worse and worse and worse. Unfortunately, it's a pretty common thing in content creation, but it also does seem to just apply to a lot of VTubers. I don't know why it happens so much, but it does. It baffles my mind.
I'm generally sad people took things said in a fictional scenario personally. I thought we were all just having fun. Also, good luck accusing the girl with chronic illness, autoimmune disorder, history of cancer, AUDHD bitch that she's ableist, because that's truly asinine.
Yeah, I gotta say, another funny thing is this also tends to happen a lot, because the people who get kind of accused of XYZ a lot of times are just kind of just born immune to that particular allegation. Like, again, trying to say it's ableist when it has a significant amount of physical disabilities and also neurodivergence. Like, it's so fucking funny. Like, this seems to happen a lot. Actually, I will say a lot of times when it comes to ableism, when talking about it online and people calling people ableist, one thing is a lot of people who are like autistic or have some sort of disability, they have a lot thicker skin than a lot of non-disabled people tend to assume, or non-disabled and neurotypical people. They tend to assume that people who have these issues are like really thin-skinned, and they kind of jump to their defense when nobody asked them to. And so a lot of them have thick skin, and so a lot of times the people they accuse of being these terrible people are actually just kind of making fun of themselves, essentially. And that's why these things tend to backfire, because I will say, I know a lot of autistic people. I think personally in content creation, I do believe that content creators are disproportionately autistic, I think it does kind of lean I will say a lot of the ways that autism affects you tends to lean itself really well into content creation. I think those things kind of complement each other, and that's why there's a disproportionate amount of autistic content creators. A lot of them really do not get offended by autism related jokes and things like that, so they'll make those jokes. People will say, "Oh, you're ableist." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm making fun of myself." So that's why I think so many of these things tend to kind of blow up in their faces.
I know you didn't care who said this, you only wanted to hurt my friends, and I won't stand for that. So, not only did ChaChaChilla know that this entire bit was done in the context of a roleplay scenario in a Minecraft collab, but the worst part is that
And I'll also notice that it is kind of funny how a lot of the VTubers who get outed for being absolutely fucking insane, so many of them tend to have these really over-the-top, adorable characters. Like, generally a VTuber will kind of go one of two directions. Female VTubers specifically will either go in the sexy or cute direction with their character and their visual aesthetics. I've noticed so many of the crazy ones really lean into the cute aesthetics. I don't know why that is, but it's kind of funny.
before going public, ChaChaChilla knew that the speaker in the clip wasn't ad-free, as she was informed via the ticket she opened to report the issue initially. So, she knew it wasn't ad-free, speaking in the clip, but she still decided to move forward with her call-out post because she just really needed to pick a fight with this VTuber agency for some reason. It's like she had this weird fixation and couldn't let it go. And with the internet staring her down, she finally did the thing everyone was waiting for. She apologized.
Yeah, and I will also, another thing that is worth noting is that she clearly had personal issues with these people, and that resulted in her not finding something bad and then jumping on that, but looking for something to manufacture the situation. And she, latched onto the smallest things she could think of. Of course, it was very flimsy. That's why it fell apart. That's why the situation was so much worse than it even started out. And it already started out pretty bad.
Or, well, at least attempted to. I feel so empty. I lost everything, and I really have nobody to blame but myself. I will say I genuinely thought using inferior was bad, but when everybody disagrees with you, it's time to take a step back and reevaluate. I'm not perfect and I make mistakes. I will say I saw Apollo's post and I never doxed anybody, nor did revenge. That's going too far. Please provide evidence.
Okay, so I will say on the surface, I think this whole scenario is okay. So this apology, I don't think it's very good, but it has the ingredients to be a good apology. The way to do it, first of all, I feel so empty. That's obviously just really performative and, trying to sympathy bait essentially. I think it's actually good that she acknowledged, say, hey, I had this frame of mind, but apparently I might have miscalculated. I might be wrong. I might have had my opinion shaken. I have to think about this now. I have to take a step back and reevaluate. That is not a bad thing. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to say, hey, the reaction to what I said has made me stop. I need to take some time to think about it. Even though the way she said it, and again, this is just me being my, literary brain, how I know how writing works. The way she wrote it doesn't sound like that's what she's saying. She sounds like she's trying to kind of offload responsibility. But the core message she's trying to convey here could be a good one if it's just worded properly. And the last sentences are just so awkwardly worded that they honestly probably should have been in a separate message entirely. It's fine to say, hey, these are serious allegations. I will push back on those, but just saying, oh, by the way, I didn't do all this, show evidence, is kind of like, now's not the time to be confrontational. There are other ways to do this.
I'm taking a step back from the internet. I feel like I just need to delve deeper into therapy about my impulsiveness and my sadness that turns into anger. I made a very impulsive mistake last night, so this is the last time I'll have access to my phone for a while. I don't know when or if I'll be back. I'm sorry that I caused drama and sorry to those I hurt.
Okay, so again, ending off, it's actually not that bad. Honestly saying, hey, I think I fucked up. I need to figure out what caused me to fuck up like this. I'm taking a break. I'm not going to be talking about this anymore. If it ended like this, even despite the issues that the earlier half of her apology had, if she actually stuck to this and then, took, a month and a half off and just kind of, even if she didn't actually reflect on anything, just took some time off, came back and said, look, I'm going to be chill. I think I figured out a lot of stuff. I don't really want to dredge up old drama. And I think that could have potentially salvaged this situation.
This is good. We like apologies.
Yeah.
Usually, if they are heartfelt and sincere. This all could have ended right there. But of course, it didn't, or I wouldn't be making this video. Because her I'm stepping back from the internet break lasted exactly as long as it took her to hit tweet again. And
Yeah, that's the issue, is when you take... Honestly, taking a break is oftentimes just the best solution. Even, again... Ideally, if you fuck up and you take a break, you take that time to actually kind of figure yourself out, figure out, okay, what caused me to make this mistake in this way? What caused me to do this? Why did I think this way? But even if you don't do that, taking a couple weeks will cause almost any drama to completely blow over. Now, there are some that can be serious enough that they won't, like if you do something unpleasant with a child, then that one might not actually go away. But again, just about any drama, the lifespan of drama on the internet is very, very short. Like after a couple weeks, people will have found some other thing to keep their attention. Again, and I know I'm not the only one who thinks that VTuber drama is like reality TV. It really is. When one situation dies, the next one pops up.
she immediately started doubling down in the replies to the irritation of literally everyone watching. So when someone pointed out that she never actually apologized to Adze or Flork, she responded with, I will say that I did say Yomi was brave for showing her face without a mask, but not for being trans. I can't.
And that is actually another good point from this person Desync, who I don't know who that is, but another issue with apologies is that a lot of times the person apologizing is just allergic to actually saying the words "I'm sorry," and those can go a very long way, like genuinely. And also, just again, if she just ignored this and said, hey, I said I'm taking a break, I am not engaging with anything at all, nobody would really have remembered this. Like, yes, this tweet did get 500 likes and 35,000 views, but give it a couple weeks, nobody would be talking about it. The only reason I know that this is a thing is because I'm seeing it in this video, and I think it was in Mugen's video as well. But yeah, again, just let the drama blow over, and then it's done.
I can't take responsibility for things I didn't do. As for the lack of apology towards Adfree and Flork, they've told me they want nothing to do with me, and I'm respecting that. Bruh. So she's basically calling Yomi a liar and showcasing a screenshot of a conversation that happened.
And okay, I'll devil's advocate again, where the way I will say, I think ChaChaChilla has some issues with wording things, where she just doesn't really know how to express the proper sentiment that she's trying, not even necessarily that she's trying to express, but she just doesn't have really any sense of optics. So what she could have said is say, oh no, that was a misunderstanding that we had. I said that she was brave for showing her face without a mask. She may have interpreted that as I'm saying she was brave for pretending transgender. It was a misunderstanding, but that's not what she said. She expressed herself in a way that made it sound like she was lying.
Happened after the con. If she was truly uncomfortable with me, she wouldn't have VIP'd me on her channel after Offkai and said it was so great meeting me. Now, for additional context, this set of DMs happened as Yomi was boarding her plane only 2 days after the con. Victims need time to process traumatizing events, and Yomi is also someone who is cordial and polite to literally everybody she meets. So it could very well be that was simply the case here. As for the VIP comment, it was confirmed confirmed that she had that information backward. She got un-VIP'd, not VIP'd. But then ChaChaChilla started getting a lot of heat online, and feeling the pressure, she decides to do what
I'm gonna wait and see if
most
she
sane
actually
people
reads
do,
these
which
out.
is fake a hospital
Okay, I want to read these. Your fixation on this issue has cost you your whole career. Speaking as a disabled person, you absolutely need to get a handle on how you approach the perceived slight. Your inability to manage your emotions here has just destroyed your chances of doing well in this space. And yes, that's absolutely true, is that you really do need to be able to maneuver these types of situations. You can't let things get to your head. One thing I will often say is that if you are emotional about anything, especially if you are a content creator, you can delay when you hit post or when you hit tweet or when you hit enter. Like, you can write what you want to write, let it sit for a bit, go back and read it again, say, okay, once you have a cooler head, is this what I want to put out there? Because you have 100% control over how you engage publicly. And not everything that comes to your head has to actually make it onto the internet. And then never be invited to another collab again, speedrun any percent. Yeah, that's another thing, is some VTubers, I don't know if that's the case with ChaChaChilla because I'm just not familiar with her content from before this whole drama happened. And I also don't really know a whole lot about most of the other creators who are involved in this. I know some of them by name, but that's about it. But some VTubers do actually rely heavily on collaborations. That's kind of a big part of their content strategy. And if you show yourself to kind of stab the people you've worked with in the back, if you show to be a difficult person to engage with, if you've shown to kind of attract unwanted attention, that can actually really harm your chances of doing a collaboration. Because I will say, I'm not somebody who does really collaborate with much at all. The most I've ever really done in the past is I've had some other creators onto my channel to essentially voice a line or two in one of my videos. With and that's kind of how I do things. But I am open to working with pretty much anybody if they have an interesting idea. Still, somebody like this who just kind of invites drama, I would think twice about engaging with them in any public capacity. So, yeah, they're right about that. And then the last one is, I know your first impulse is to blame everyone else for your predicament, but this entire situation could have been easily avoided by your own actions. Enjoy your narcissistic collapse, and although I doubt it, maybe you learn to not do this performative bullshit again. Yep, that just kind of echoes what I'm saying. And I do agree that they are basically like... I mean, I've said this before. This is probably before you showed up to the stream, but yeah, this is basically reality TV to me. I know that this is stupid. It doesn't matter at all. But I find this very entertaining because again, it's like watching a car crash in slow motion. You just can't look away.
pressure, she decides to do what most sane people do, which is fake a hospital visit. I'll be heading off to the hospital soon and won't have access to my phone, she tweets. It's almost comical how often these menheras resort to these tactics just to dodge accountability. I'm almost compelled to start a bingo card that we will use for...
Okay, let's see. Use or blame disability, revenge porn, I'm not going to censor myself, stalk, dox, that's AI, doctored evidence, threaten lawsuit for defamation, hospital baiting, throw boyfriend under bus, keep posting despite everyone moving on, blame matism, rebrand, free space, I'm human and flawed, delete tweets, gaslight, denounce previous names, my truth, falsely accuse and defame, I lost everything, invite yourself to someone's dinner, sexually harass someone, blackmail, make ChatGPT apologies, fuck accountability. It's funny because I can... Yeah, I think most of these would definitely apply to multiple situations I've heard of.
all these situations from now on and see how fast we get a bingo. Worst part is that apparently this wasn't even the first time she faked going to the hospital when she couldn't face the consequences of her actions. Regardless, the hospital...
This is also the second time you've claimed you're going to the hospital after stirring up shit with people and having to handle the consequences of your own actions. Sorry, but I don't buy it. You've lost any sort of benefit of the doubt. I hope you grow and change. And that is also an important point where if you do something, a lot of times the first time you do something, you'll have the benefit of the doubt, especially when it comes to something like medical problems. People will assume you're telling the truth because it would be really shitty if somebody actually has medical problems and they're immediately accused of faking it. So usually most people will give you the benefit of the doubt the first time. However, if you're shown to be willing to lie about something like that, you lose that benefit of the doubt. It's, the boy who cried wolf.
When she couldn't face the consequences of her actions. Regardless, that tweet lit the internet.
Okay, I'm feeling she's not gonna read these out, so I will. Dude, you have the mental maturity. You seriously have the mental maturity of a 12-year-old. Shame on yourself. Please stop victimizing yourself and gaslighting people. It's not how the adult person should behave. I go to the hospital every day too. Please give me attention.
On fire and got community noted almost instantly. What
is
lit the
Come on, Rima.
internet on fire and got
ChaChaChilla is known for using hospital tweets after being confirmed to be in the wrong in situations. Previously, she has done that in a similar situation with Froggy Hoppin'. According to the replies, she got unrealistically hospitalized in under 22 minutes. I do remember the 22 minutes. I don't remember the exact contents of that. It's been a while since I've heard about this situation.
Community noted almost instantly. What made it even less believable is that she kept on tweeting after saying that she wouldn't have access to her phone anymore.
That's
I swear,
true.
this woman lies so much that she can't even keep track of her own lies. She needs a lie diary. And since no one believed her, ChaChaChilla decided.
Okay. So, yeah, that goes back to what I was saying earlier of, hey, just kind of dip the fuck out. Don't try to make things worse. Or, obviously, she's not trying to make things worse. But what she's doing is making things worse. Again, just kind of leave it be. Every tweet is a missed opportunity to quit while you're only behind somewhat. Where, again, sometimes you just gotta take the small L of, hey, I made an ass of myself, to avoid the bigger L of, hey, I've now made an even bigger ass of myself and I've made things even worse. Because I do believe that, I don't know exactly what the point of no return was for ChaCha. Because the initial incident was 1000% salvageable. All she needed to do was just not engage with it anymore. Maybe post an apology, like just say, hey, sorry, I kind of crashed out. Let's move on. Eventually, it came to a point where, okay, she probably would have needed to take a break, just kind of let things cool down. I don't know what the exact point of no return is. It's getting to that point. Once you start bringing up fake hospital visits, that's when things are starting to get to the point where, like, oh, is she going to be able to recover from it? I don't know if she could still recover at this point, but it's still possible, honestly.
To post a picture of herself at the hospital. But here, she made two crucial mistakes. The first was that she posted that selfie way too fast. It didn't make any sense. Her first post saying she was heading to the hospital was at 12:36 p.m. And within 14 minutes, she was already in the hospital bed, hooked up to a heart monitor and everything.
I will say one thing that I do think is the case when it comes to people who are essentially lying to cover up previous lies. One of the issues is that they kind of make up each lie on the spot and try to kind of make it retroactively make sense. And that kind of leads to inconsistencies. That's how these things can be found out so easily. And then to salvage those lies and inconsistencies, then you have to come up with something even more ridiculous. And that's why it completely blows up in your face after a while. And even on top of that, there's the fact that I think if you get caught in one lie, just kind of owning up to it and being like, yeah, okay, I lied, I shouldn't have done that, it is going to hurt you a lot less than being involved in a continuous string of lies. But, like, if you really did want to lie about something and keep it straight, you kind of have to almost, like, plot it out like you're doing fucking... Like you're writing I mean, it is fiction, essentially, if you're writing a story. Have all the facts down ahead of time so you kind of know the fictional series of events in your head. That's how actually a lot of really good writers actually write their books. Like, a good example is actually J.R.R. Tolkien. If you've ever read or seen Lord of the Rings, it actually did not start with the story of the Lord of the Rings, with Frodo and Gandalf bringing the One Ring to Mordor. It actually started with J.R.R. Tolkien creating Middle-earth. He created this world, created the various civilizations in it, created the history, he created the languages, because, Tolkien was a linguist, he loved languages. and he based the existing languages in his settings on actual real language rules. But he created all of this stuff before he actually started writing the story we know as Lord of the Rings. And because he actually had everything set out from the start, it led to the actual story being very consistent. People actually knew, it's you can't really find serious flaws in the chronology of Lord of the Rings for that reason. That's how you could kind of craft a lie, and if you did that, you would actually be very convincing. However, because they're kind of coming up with these additional lies off the top of their head, that's why it kind of blows up in their face.
I need a number to this hospital because this is record timing. The second mistake she made was that she didn't properly hide the hair on her selfie. As you can see here, some pink strands of hairs are peeking out from under this emoji. And this clued some people in. More precisely, the people that had previously met her realized that this wasn't her at all.
Earlier,
she never had pink hair in the first place. But then, seeing that no one was buying it, ChaCha does the reasonable thing. She doesn't only double down, she triples down. Suddenly, she wasn't going to a hospital anymore, but a psych ward. And
okay.
Down.
I
Suddenly,
wish Rima would read these things. Also, I wasn't hospitalized in under 22 minutes. I had been there since November 17th. I was waiting to be transferred to a psych ward. However, the psych ward was full, so I was discharged instead. I mean, they're going to bring up some of the inconsistency with that, because I know she said she's going to the hospital after that point, but I don't know. I feel like also, if you're unwell enough to require a psych ward visit, I feel like they would hold you instead of just letting you go, saying, "Oh, we're full, sorry, nothing we can do." Because I feel like if you're well enough that that's going to be a barrier to entry, then you're not unwell enough to actually need a inpatient psychological care. That being said, I don't have any direct experience with this kind of thing, so I could be completely talking out my ass here.
she wasn't going to a hospital anymore, but a psych ward. And netizens were outraged by this, and
You're not only lying to everyone on the site, you're also lying to yourself. No, I think she knows exactly what she's saying is untrue. I don't think she's lying to herself at all. Lying about being in the hospital is a shit dodge. You will never escape the consequences of what you've done. Might be the best to end this persona and move on to another career that has nothing to do with streaming VTubing. That I actually do agree with. I do think a lot of the if you behave like this online and you take a small scandal and just continually make it worse, the internet probably isn't for you, or at least not engaging with the internet as a public figure. I do think one of the issues that happens with why so many people kind of have these catastrophic downfalls online is I think some people just are not the type of people who are capable of handling the unique challenges that come with being a public figure. And of course, I'm not talking like from personal experience or anything like that. I have a few thousand subscribers on my main channel. I've had some videos go semi-viral, but I don't have the kind of attention on me that a true public figure has. So I'm just kind of saying this as a speculative thing, but again, it's a kind of thing that I think can apply a lot of stresses to people if they don't know how to handle it. And I think ChaChaChilla is probably one of those people who can't really handle public attention. And literally, why did you steal someone's hospital photo? What the fuck is wrong with you? Okay.
reason. Many sharing their own experiences
Yeah,
where
it took 11 hours to see a doctor at all for what would end up being emergency surgery. That is pretty crazy to have 11 hours for emergency surgery, because, I've been to the hospital before. I've had surgeries done. I've never had to have, emergency, you need to fix this now surgery, but I've had surgery that was necessary. 11 hours is a long time, but I also agree that 14 minutes is also not a long time. It is very short. I wait more than 14 minutes for doctor's visits that I have appointments for. When I if I go to urgent care, I'm waiting more than 14 minutes, even though their whole thing is that they have fast turnover. That's part of the appeal of urgent care. So yeah, 14 minutes is fucking ridiculous. But also 11 hours is kind of unusual, at least here in America. If it's an emergency, you're put to the front of the line.
They had to wait literal hours for an emergency. Someone even saying that they had to wait over 2 hours when they
Collapsed. That is wild. It does depend on why you collapse. Like if you collapse due to just general fatigue or to something that doesn't require immediate significant intervention, like it's definitely possible that you could just be like dehydrated or something. In those cases, it might make sense to have somebody quickly stabilize you and then you still wait beyond that. Again, there's not enough information here to really say what was going on here, but I do know also, sometimes hospitals are very overworked, depending on situations, especially when it was around COVID time, because that was only a couple years ago. At that point, a lot of hospitals were very busy, both because of actual COVID cases and because people were kind of paranoid about their health at the time, and people were going to the hospital when they didn't need to, which just clogged up the system. So in those scenarios, those could be actually worse than my own experiences, because I did not have any hospital visits during that period of time, which I'm very glad for. Thankfully, even when I did get COVID, it was not bad enough to actually require a visit to the doctor, so I am grateful for that. But so I will acknowledge that what I'm saying is based on non-strange circumstances. So I'm used to the hospital under normal circumstances, not like crazy situations like COVID.
At the hospital. Yet, she's sitting here lying about her experience because she decided to pipe up and she decided to start shit. And when people didn't believe her, she just couldn't handle it. So she pivoted straight into sympathy farming instead. It's disgusting. Illnesses and mental health aren't props for you to pull out when you need to save face.
And I do agree with that, because one of the things that kind of gets me is when people will call themselves as having like physical problems or mental problems. Well, all that ends up really doing is taking away from the people who actually have those types of struggles. Like I don't want to feel skeptical when I hear that somebody has gone to the hospital or that they're having a mental episode. I don't want to feel skeptical for those things because I want to be sympathetic, because those things suck. Like, it is not fun to have medical emergencies. It is not fun to have mental health struggles. And I want to be sympathetic because I don't want to make their experience worse. And if it's somebody I know, I want to be able to make their experience suck a little bit less. But when people will use these as kind of a shield or as a crutch, especially when they're not real, that just makes it harder to believe the people who are actually going through those struggles. So that is one thing. I think it is very good that we're kind of harsh against the people who fake this kind of thing. Although I do think it's also important to not jump on somebody just because you think it might be fake, even if you can't say it's necessarily fake. It's a delicate thing where, ideally it would be best if people just didn't fake this type of stuff, but this is the internet. That's probably never going to happen.
And after that, the internet...
And I know she's not going to read this. I've never heard of you before. Now I know you were fake hospital trips for attention. That's actually my experience. I had no idea who ChaChaChilla was before this. Interestingly, the first time I heard about it was actually from the Muujin video. And I will also say that I also remember seeing the other VTuber named ChaCha, your VMom. She saw that ChaCha was trending, so she got kind of freaked out and then realized it was a different person. That's another way I heard of it, which I thought was very funny. I have no skin in the game whatsoever, but it appears you have used someone else's photo. That is not how you build trust. Totally not an image you found and posted for sympathy. I don't remember exactly where the image came from. I heard it might have been AI generated, but nowadays on the internet, if you grab a picture that you find to try to fake something, that's just going to blow up in your face because everybody knows how to reverse image search, and reverse image searches have gotten pretty good. So if it's been on the internet before, it can be found again.
Went into loads of speculations to try to explain away her photo. Some thought the picture was AI generated, then somebody actually AI generated a photo which...
Okay. Yeah, so... Okay, so yeah, they said this video is AI generated in itself, meant to be a fake image to... essentially, they generated a fake image of the previous image, and they mentioned, strange monitor on the right. But yeah, if that was originally like an AI generated image that had the emoji placed on top of it, AI would not be able to accurately remove that, because it's kind of the way photo editing and stuff like that works, is that when you layer something on top of the image, it basically completely hides any of the data that was underneath. And when it is re-rendered or exported into its own unique image file, whatever was underneath that is basically gone. So that's why. So a little bit of security information for you. If you ever want to post something and you have information in the image that you want to hide, like maybe your face or private details like your name or your address or something, anything like that, anything you don't want the public to know, a lot of people will either blur or pixelate, which it does look better, but those use essentially algorithms that create the blur or pixelated effect. They essentially manipulate the data of those pixels to create a new set of pixels, and it can be reverse engineered. That's why if you're going to block stuff from an image, actually put like a box or another image on top of it, because you can't actually figure out what's underneath it using any kind of computer software. Like it can't be done. So that's a little bit of cybersecurity info for you guys.
Which confused and muddied the conversation even more.
And yeah, and like I'll back up so I can hear what she's, because I went on a tangent, so I want to be able to hear what she said in full context. But yeah, that just goes to the point, is this is obviously a fake image. And so yeah, just don't trust stuff like that.
Explain away her photo. Some thought the picture was AI generated, then somebody actually AI generated a photo, which confused and muddied the conversation even more.
AI photos are getting scary good.
Please don't do that, even if you hate the person. Others confirmed that her hair wasn't actually pink, but brown. Most thought that she just Others confirmed
that this picture is not her. She doesn't have pink dyed hair. Her hair is natural brown / dark blonde mix. Seen what she looked like in Zentrea's Offkai stream, where she heavily self-promoted herself to the point that both Zen and our favorite monarch got uncomfortable. This is a fake pic. I will say, in total fairness, you can always just dye your hair after the fact. Like, I wouldn't say, somebody has natural hair and then later picture shows them having dyed hair is not necessarily evidence of any kind of faking. If you, because again, I have like a brownish blondish hair color in real life. Yeah, just so people know, my PNG tuber model doesn't look anything like me in real life. But see, so people could see me with that hair color. But if I wanted to today, I could dye it blue or green or pink, or hell, I could bleach it blonde. Like, again, if it went from she had a crazy hair color to natural hair color, even then that could be dye, but that would be a little bit more believable.
Confirmed that her hair wasn't actually pink, but brown. Most thought that she just slapped.
You definitely stole someone's pic and added a bear emoji. Just shut the fuck up. Imagine stealing someone's another person's picture. So pathetic. Ain't no way you just snatch someone's photo like this. Say it ain't so.
An emoji on someone else's photo and use that instead. And as far as we know, for now, that seems to be the most conclusive theory, as Avalamps mentions here. As someone who has had multiple hospital visits recently, this is really fucked up to use someone else's photo, slap an emoji on it, and claim it is yourself. Lying about being in the hospital after getting called out for your bad behavior for sympathy points is disgusting.
Yeah, and I don't remember if this was another picture that was taken or if it was like an AI generated picture, because I feel like at this point somebody should just try to do the reverse image search, see if they can find something close enough. Although it is hard with like the most defining features being the center of the picture being blocked by the emoji. I don't know.
Another VTuber called Liz Justice responds to Avalamp's tweet to show her how ChaChaChilla under her bunny Alisu alias had admitted to baiting in the past as well. I suppose this is under her.
I did something bad a month ago, which is why I left. It didn't involve you. What did you do? Or lie. I did attempt, I think that's suicide, but it did not involve you or anybody else for that matter, unless you count my mom. Damn, and I did suicide bait. I regret it. Assuming the blocked word is suicide, that would make sense based on the context, but I don't know for sure.
Bunny Elisu alias had admitted to baiting in the past as well. I suppose this is another scratch on our bingo card. I've
Wait, actually, I'm trying to think.
baiting in the
Okay,
past as well. I
I'm
suppose
trying to think. So she's marking the bingo card as a joke, but like, okay, there are more. Wait.
this is another scratch.
Oh yeah,
on our
okay, it's a hospital bait. I'm trying to think. Does she actually miss anything? Because I know there actually some more of these boxes do get checked later on. I mean, you could argue that Stalk and Docs here probably should have been checked, but that's from a previous drama, so I kind of get it. Okay, yeah, you know, that's fair. How she's kind of being a little bit conservative at this point.
Bingo card. Ava, I can back you up because I have her admitting to baiting. Then we see Bunny Elisu writing, I did something bad a month ago,
Oh, she's
which is
gonna read it
why I
anyway.
left.
Okay.
It didn't involve you. What did you do? I did attempt, but I did not involve you or anybody else for that matter, unless you count my mom. And I did bait. I regret it. The saddest part is that Apollo also commented on that post as well, adding that she got tangled up in that entire arc back then and
Crazy. She included me in that arc, and boy, was that a birthday. Apollo, I give you all the hugs right now. You've gone through the ringer. I'm not going to comment on the spelling. Not going to lie, seeing that screenshot got me crying again. That relief, man, I wish I saw that years ago. Thank you so much, hugs. I'm so glad this is giving you closure. Hopefully you can heal from this. Yeah. Again, even despite my criticisms of Apollo earlier, I will say she got fucked over. Like, I'm not trying to detract from that. She's absolutely not the bad guy here.
seeing those screenshots had her crying again. We can only wish her well moving forward. But then ChaCha didn't think tripling down was gonna cut it. So she decides to quadruple down instead and post a photo of a wig to claim that her brown hair was a wig and her real hair is actually pink. And then, you can't make this up, she decides to quintuple down. Somebody please take her phone away. And she does this by posting a photo of her hair with a post-it showcasing what is supposed to be the date.
And the funny thing about this is, so I remember hearing about this. I am still this still kind of confuses me. Granted, when I watched the original Mugen video, I did actually watch it while I was at work. That's kind of what I do. I work in a warehouse, and I'm allowed to have earbuds in. So a lot of times I will actually listen to YouTube videos while I work. And so I only kind of have a few glances at my phone to try to see what they were talking about when this came up. I have not really been able to fully decipher what this is supposed to be. So that's why I am kind of leaning on this does sound kind of like it's AI generated. I can't say for sure. There could be an explanation that I'm just not thinking of. But just thinking as a content creator, something I've mentioned in the past is that I am not good at like visual design stuff. The area where I struggle the most as a YouTuber is probably my thumbnails. The visual stuff does not come naturally to me. That being said, over the years, I have learned a decent amount about photo editing from creating thumbnails, so I kind of know how these things work. This would be such an easy thing to fake in like Photoshop. Here's what I'm assuming is that they came up with a fake image, and I think this is an AI generated image of somebody with pink hair showing the handwritten thing. That's kind of how that's the traditional way of showing that you're a real person on the internet. Nowadays with AI, it's probably not as reliable as before, but all you have to fucking do is generate the thing with a blank image, write the words on an actual piece of paper, take a picture of it, color match, and then just superimpose that onto the thing. But I will also say that there's another of other tells that point to possible AI. Like, I will say the thing that kind of gets me is this shirt right here. It looks a little bit too crisp, if that makes sense. Like, there's zero wrinkles, zero flaws of any kind. It's almost like if a shirt could have Uncanny Valley, that's what I'm talking about here. So, granted, I might just be kind of like a little, I mean, I know I'm probably a little autistic, like just that's how my brain works. So I might be just thinking a little bit differently, but there are things about this image that just seem a little bit suspicious. Again, I'm not trying to pretend that I have any definitive proof of anything I'm saying. This is just a feeling.
And her name to prove that it's indeed her. Except the date that she wrote on that post-it, 119, it wasn't the date she posted the photo on, nor the previous day's date. It didn't prove anything. So she's not only a liar, but she's also stupid. Then she tries to pass this off as simply bad handwriting.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that I could almost... Actually... Yeah, you'd have to... The number of characters doesn't quite make sense there, where if there was one more line there, it would kind of make sense. But, I don't know, 11, 19... It would only make sense if you were writing in a way that did not use any slashes, which is just... That's not a normal way to write dates. Honestly, that's one of those things where she should have looked at that and said, oh no, that didn't quite come out right. I need to either edit it or regenerate it. Because... Granted, I don't have a whole lot of experience with AI image generation. I've played around with it a little bit, but I don't know the specifics of it, and I certainly have not played around with any of like the good AI, like I don't know, like the ones that actually make the convincing looking images. But so maybe it's harder than I'm thinking, but still, she should have looked at that and said, "Oh yeah, no, that's not a good one. That's one for the discard."
Huh?
So I ask you one more time. Does this number possibly look like an 1119 to you, as ChaCha is claiming?
Yeah, so, okay, no, even looking just at this even more, the fact that, again, this is going to be a little bit autistic, but the fact that these two are longer, that indicates that they're probably meant to be slashes. So this does look like 1/1/9. It would be... Okay. No, okay, so I misspoke earlier. There's not an incorrect amount of there's not an incorrect number of characters. But if this slash was longer, then I could actually believe it's 1119. But that's just, it just doesn't, it feels wrong to me.
Yeah, thought so.
And again, I understand. I'm starting to sound almost like right here. This looks like the kind of thing you'd see in like a conspiracy theory video. Because I will say those are actually a lot of fun to watch. Like, because watching people just kind of go insane over things is amusing. But so I understand that I'm sounding a little bit conspiracy theorist. But these are the things I am noticing.
To get dissected even further than absolutely memed on by the entire internet.
Let's play hide and seek. I'll hide and you seek for help. That's funny. And I'm actually looking at... Is that coffee, a can of coffee in the background in a shower? And wait. Okay, I'm sorry. I've never seen this meme before. Or this meme template, this meme format. There's just... questions the more I look at it. Like, you know, the big one is the coffee, the tin of coffee. Granted, you could just be using an empty thing of coffee for storage, so that could be explained. I'm not sure what this is. This looks like fluffy. I'm guessing that's like tissues or wet wipes or something like that. But the thing that's getting me is, so this looks like it's in like a shower or a bathtub or something. And there's an outlet right next to that. That is a fire marshal's just worst nightmare.
With some VTubers even making their own parody of it.
Okay,
Had a mental health episode last night and ended up trying something stupid. Lucky for me, my fiance found me before things got really bad. I know I said some things that might have hurt people's feelings recently, but that's no reason to bully someone by sending them mean things. I know there's going to be people who accuse me of just wanting to farm sympathy points right now, but I can prove what I'm saying is true. Here's a picture I just took from the ER.
Yeah,
Got it.
That's that. I don't know. I like it when people just kind of have fun with ongoing situations, because again, this is something I've said in the past, where I like drama that is relatively harmless, because it's one of those things. That's why I've never actually been into like the actual lolcow culture, just because a lot of people take those things way too far. It's not funny when people are actually getting hurt. So that's why I like when people are starting to get like actually upset about stuff. Some people decide to just, you know, have some fun with it. So tweets like that are things I do tend to appreciate. Although I just imagine how shitty it must be if somebody actually has a fuck up and then shortly after has a legitimate medical emergency. That could be like that's a little concerning, but obviously that's not what's happening here.
Admit, it was pretty good. Feeling unnerved by everyone's jabs and accusations, ChaCha then decides to tweet again. I am aware there are many allegations circulating about me. I take all of these accusations seriously, and I'm fully prepared to address each and every one of them. To ensure accuracy and transparency, I ask that anyone making a claim reply to this post with the specific dates, times, and details of the events they are referring to. Once that information is provided, I will respond to each allegation directly, thoroughly, with screenshots and evidence. If those making the accusations choose not to provide this information, I will take the refusal as a lack of willingness to prove their claims. In that case, I will be including the unverified allegations and any related conduct in upcoming legal proceedings, so the matter can be handled appropriately.
Okay, so there's a couple things with this. First of all, she's just making it worse, where, again, sometimes you just have to quit when you're behind. Like, take the small L so that you don't take a bigger L. At this point, it's already a bigger L, but at that point, take the bigger L so you don't make an even bigger L in the future. Just, again, sometimes there's a time to dip out. If if you're at the casino, you lost $100. At that point, just say, okay, you know what? I lost $100. That's how this night's going to end. Don't keep doubling down until you eventually lose $20,000. That's kind of what the way I think of this situation. But also, there's the fact that she did say, hey, I'm taking a break. She never took a break. Just leaving it be is going to do a lot to help her if she just lets this blow over. Any damage control will be easier in the future. Getting confrontational is also not a good way of doing things, where everybody's kind of against you. There aren't really many people on her side at this point, so trying to, have the image of fighting the good fight, this is just not the time to do that. So that's another issue that she has. And also, while there are definitely times when going the legal route can be a proper solution to things, this is not that. Because one thing that's also the case is, I'm just talking from an American perspective. I don't know how it is in other countries. I know defamation is handled very differently in different countries. But in the American system, especially in this context where she would likely be considered a public figure for the purposes of a defamation lawsuit, in the United States, if you're a public figure, it is a lot harder to win defamation suits, where you would essentially have to prove what is called actual malice, which is not maliciousness as it is in like a colloquial setting. Actual malice essentially means they said something incorrect that they knew was incorrect, or that they should have known was incorrect under the circumstances. That is a much higher bar than just saying something untrue. And also she has to prove damages, where unless it's a certain category of defamation, and I'm not a lawyer, but these are things that I do know just from having, absorbed the information through my experiences. Because I don't know, I find the law interesting, just not interesting enough to study. But if you do generally have to prove damages, saying, hey, this actually hurt me in this way, and that's where you can recover from. Like, say, hey, I lost this much income because I lost this sponsor deal, or I was fired from this job and I would have made this much in wages. Or I went to therapy and therapy cost me this much as a direct result of these actions. That's what you usually have to prove, unless it's a specific category of things like certain crimes. If you defame someone with that, it's defamation per se, where it's assumed that damages happened because of how damaging that thing is. So like, if we go to an extreme example, if you falsely accuse somebody of doing bad things with a child, that is the kind of thing that on its face is going to be damaging no matter what. So that's when that's defamation per se, and damages are assumed in that scenario. So you will get, even if you can't prove a direct financial harm, it's bad enough that the courts will assume that there's going to be enough harm to justify collecting money off of that. So basically, even if she was genuinely being lied about at this point, or the allegations genuinely weren't true, she would have a really, really difficult time in court. So the legal proceedings right now are just not a good idea.
And then she has the absolute audacity to make another tweet to raise funds for her lawyer fees, linking to her stream elements, mind you. However, another user called Existential Bread responds with receipts from her Discord and exposes her for trying to damage control further in there.
Read this,
and let me tell you right now.
Okay.
I'll
read it. I have barely any personal interactions with ChaChaChilla in the past. However, I followed the drama and was still in her Discord when she suddenly came back from her supposed hospital stay and began damage control. I was extremely skeptical, but willing to at least hear her out, as I believe in hearing both sides of a story. That is what you should do, by the way. You should generally not jump on something at the first allegation. I will say I have been, even though I don't really publicly engage with drama, I have been guilty of coming to conclusions in my own head before hearing everything out, and I try to avoid doing that because that can just make things worse, which is also why I refuse to comment on public situations before I think I've come to a reasonable conclusion. She posted a photo of herself with pink hair and the bear sticker. I asked for one thing, that she post the same photo but with at least a piece of paper showing her name, as it could literally have been any pink-haired girl. For me, the main thing wasn't seeing that she had pink hair of some sort and her name in the photo. I wanted to see it match the first one she took within a reasonably short period of time to prove she wasn't just bullshitting again. The reasonably short period of time, I don't know. If it's an AI-generated image, it would not take very long to just generate another image, so I get where she's coming from, but I do think that methodology is a little flawed. Instead of doing that, she made several excuses, called me mean, made it about her disability instead of her lies, let one of her defenders say it was a shocker that I am autistic, ironic considering her issues started with her accusing someone of being ableist without admonishing them for it. I genuinely didn't care, but I find it telling she didn't react to it, etc. And yeah, that's also an important thing where when I talk about, if I ever do talk about situations like that, because the way I explain it is I am probably autistic. I don't have an official diagnosis, but I'm about as certain as you can be without one, because I actually have had a number of cognitive tests done by I can't remember the actual title. I think it was a neuropsychologist who specializes in autism. I ultimately just I opted for the more generalized tests than the autism-specific ones, because I personally didn't value the actual diagnosis. I just kind of wanted information more than anything. Afterwards, she went over the results and said, I can't actually diagnose you because I didn't do the right test, so I don't have the exact amount of information I need. But your results indicate a likelihood of autism. So that is why I say I am probably autistic. So I also do not care about people saying things about autism. I do not care. It does not bother me in the slightest. And I'll make autism jokes myself. And also, I just don't want to be treated as, or any of the autistic friends I've made, because I like autistic people. I've known autistic people my whole life. I don't want people to be treated as, special or different or needing protection just because of different neurological pathways, how they process things a little differently. I think that's not how you get acceptance. So I don't care about people being quote-unquote ableist. But if somebody has made that their whole thing, then I'm going to hold them to their own standards. So that's what I think she's doing here. And I think that is a completely reasonable approach to take. I don't really have a personal stake in this drama or interact with anyone who was affected by it, and wasn't planning to share this if I wasn't banned merely for not immediately believing her. But seeing as how she is now asking people to help her fund a lawyer, I felt it important to share that she seems to be exactly the kind of person she showed herself to be recently. Yeah, and I will say this, the fact that she tried to solicit lawyer fees while she's kind of the bad guy of the week is just, pretty tone deaf. Like, she should have known that would have been backfired. And also, if she had a really good case, she could have found a lawyer who would handle it on contingency, because that's a thing where if you're a plaintiff in a lawsuit and you have a reasonable chance of success, you don't actually have to pay upfront for a lawyer. If the case is good, you'll find lawyers who are willing to accept the case for free, but if and when you settle or win, they get a chunk of what you collect. So that's it's good and bad. It's bad because it can enable more frivolous lawsuits, though they just kind of push for a quick settlement. But it's good because people without means can actually hold people accountable in a court of law when it is appropriate to do so. So there's good and bad for that situation, but it is a thing that is a thing. To make it clear, I understand how POTS works, and it wasn't the one to originally bring up the first photo, and it wasn't the one to originally bring up how the first photo was while standing. My point was that she should take them in the same place and the same lighting, and if she did think it was significant enough of a difference to stand versus sit, then she did it shortly before to take the original photo, and it shouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that she could again. As a former photographer, I don't think standing would have been necessary to get the same lighting in this situation. Okay.
Exposes her for trying to damage control further in there. And let me tell you right now, it did not look good. Essentially, Brett was in her Discord server trying to help her fix the situation. Like, generally, essentially.
Okay. Yes, I have pink hair and the brown is a wig. I'm not looking forward to Twitter tearing this apart. You need to show a piece of paper with your name handwritten or something. It's not 100% proof, but pretty good. I was going to say hold up a piece of paper with the date and time or something so people know it's you. Yep, okay.
Brett was in her Discord server trying to help her fix the situation. Like, generally giving her step-by-step instructions on how to clear her name once and for all. Brett tells her, okay, take another selfie, same room, same lighting, same position.
Let me just see if that's something that is actually...
Brett tells her, okay, take another selfie, same room.
Let's see. Honestly, 2 different pics in the same area lighting with the second holding paper and being within half an hour is pretty good proof. Maybe a video over talking, delay, or different location/lighting will be more sus. And talking about the talking, that would be good too. Yeah, this is the kind of thing where if you're being legitimate and there's an actual picture, it would be fairly easy to reasonably prove something. Although, just again, devil's advocate, one thing that could be an issue is when you're talking, sometimes, especially in the VTubing space where you don't necessarily show your original face or voice or anything like that, the voice you hear in my videos and my streams is slightly different from my real voice. Because I don't use a voice changer or anything, but I do use audio effects on my voice. Like, my microphone has software built in that lets me add some compression, some equalization. I have a noise gate on OBS to prevent background noise. I have things that I do to that, and then on my videos, I add additional effects on top of that. I use a normalize filter, which essentially normalizes the loud and quiet elements of the voiceover to make it, the volume to be kind of consistent through all. And then I use a limiter to eliminate peaking. Both of those things affect the sound of my voice. So if I were just to pull out my phone, record a video talking, it would sound different than you guys are used to hearing. So I will give credit that could be a factor. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I think it is important to try to be as fair as possible. I don't want to dogpile. I'm not that kind of person. As much as I say I'm enjoying watching the car crash, this is reality TV, I still don't want to treat people unfairly. So that is something that could be a factor. And if she does actually use a voice changer, that would be a problem as well, because there's nothing inherently wrong with using a voice changer. I've known of VTubers who I've seen who are very clearly using a voice changer and will be open about using a voice changer. You're probably not going to have that software on your phone if you use it while doing content for stream, because that's usually on your computer. Those can be resource intensive. So this is not a guaranteed thing that she can do to clear her name, even if she was actually in the right here.
Same lighting, same position, standing up, posted within 1 hour of the last one. That way it's undeniable proof that it's you. And
it wouldn't be undeniable, but it would be pretty hard to fake.
Just like, okay, I'll do it. And then she comes back with that posted photo. And everyone is immediately confused. Why is the pink hair a different shade? Why does the posted say 119?
Okay, I'll get more devil's advocate because, again, I think it should be fair. Even subtle changes in lighting, even things like facing a slightly different direction or just how the shadows kind of cast, that can change the colors of things. There can be things done in the actual compression on various sites or just how the image is processed in your on your phone because they don't just take a direct copy of the image and put things. Technical stuff is happening in the background that can change how colors look. Hell, both of my monitors, if I look at something on one monitor versus the other, sometimes it looks a little bit different just because the settings are not 100% in alignment. So again, having a different shade of hair color, that's not conclusive enough for me. But that being said, I do think it's bullshit, but I don't think is a good argument for it.
Why is the lighting different? Why is the room different? And why are you wearing a completely different t-shirt? So Chacha explains, well, my aunt came over earlier, so I wore a dress, then changed it into a t-shirt. And then she starts complaining that Brett keeps asking her for more and more photos. But Brett is like, I'm not asking you for more photos. You just didn't follow the very simple instructions I gave you.
And that's also another important thing is that fighting on something this small is an issue. That hurts credibility. Because if you just start from the start, like, look, I took the one picture, make whatever accusations you want, I've said my piece. And again, like I've saying before, she should just dip the fuck out, let things cool down. The fact that she shows I'm willing to go through these extra efforts to prove myself, and then fighting on these little details, that is a red flag.
Literally trying to help you. And honestly, she's kind of right. If Chacha had just followed the instructions, it would have been a pretty solid proof. But then Chacha starts coming up with every excuse imaginable for why she can't take the correct photo. First, it's, I can't stand for that long. I get...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't buy that just because... okay, granted, if she was having legitimate medical issues, standing for an extended period of time could be difficult, but again... If she was able to stand for one picture, even if she got dizzy right after, she could quickly stand for another and just deal with the dizziness. Granted, that's probably not a good mindset for your entire life. Like, generally speaking, if something makes you feel unwell, you should probably avoid it. But in this scenario, yeah. Although, wait, she was at the convention, so... She had to have been standing for that, because I don't think anybody mentioned her being in, like, a wheelchair or anything like that. But, granted, it could be, if she did have, on-set medical issues, that could be the explanation there. Again, I'm mostly just being devil's advocate here, but, again, I do think it is fair. I think it's important to try to look at things as fair as possible, and try to make the arguments, even if they're not being made by anyone involved. Because, skepticism is always a good thing.
Dizzy, then it's because of my heart condition. I'll faint if I stand too long. But like, she stood up just fine to take that previous first selfie, so why can't she stand up again for 2 seconds while she snaps the newer one? Was it a...
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been saying, where, heart conditions do make people unable to stand for long periods of time. I don't know of any heart condition that lets you stand up, but not for, 10 seconds to snap a picture, especially if you've shown the ability to have done that recently. So,
one-time miracle? Brett then starts getting suspicious, and suddenly Chacha goes, oh my god, you don't believe me? Fine, I'll get you my tilt table test. But no one even asked...
Okay. Table formatting from the original result was not included. Tilt table study. Date. September 12th, 2025. Okay, that's a couple months earlier. Indications: syncope, near syncope, shortness of breath, tachycardia, palpitations, chronic fatigue unspecified. Medications: current medications 1. Allergies: Definity, perflutin lipid microspheres, and penicillins. Study overview. The patient was brought into the non-invasive cardiac laboratory and was placed on the tilt table in the supine position. The EKGs showed NSR. The patient was tilted to 70 degrees by tilting the table over 15 minutes as per our established protocol. The patient became lightheaded, sweaty, with blurring of vision, and passed out at 6 minutes into the tilt, and the test was terminated. On definite hypertension or brachycardia could be documented. The patient was placed in supine position for a recovery phase of the study. The patient remained stable and asymptomatic throughout the recovery period. The patient was ambulated and discharged in stable condition. Condition post-test stable, complications none, disposition discharged in stable condition. Okay, so I don't understand all of these terms here. I do understand a decent amount of what's going on. I'm not familiar with tilt table tests. So I'm not 100% confident in what all of this means. But from what I'm seeing, assuming this is an accurate, this is like a real thing that she's sharing, it does seem like she has some issues with like blood pressure or maybe anemia, something that is just affects the ability for the body to withstand certain stressors. So that when she has, is doing things where gravity is going to affect her blood flow, it can kind of fuck with her, makes her heart kind of fuck up. Maybe when she tilts it, the blood doesn't get to her brain or whatever. So it does seem like she has some sort of legitimate issue. Does not seem to be crippling based on this, which admittedly, again, is from 2 months prior to this whole scenario. So, yeah. I'm not sure what it's, as Brett is saying, nobody's asking for this. I'm not sure the relevance of it, but yeah, again, I think it's important to take a look at everything that's shown, try to take it into account.
Her for any medical record or a tilt table test ever. All they wanted her to do was to take the goddamn selfie. After some more back and forth, ChaCha gets super defensive and starts strawmanning every single thing. After some more
You were when you accused me of lying. Nobody is saying you aren't disabled. You accused me of lying about being disabled. We're saying you're making irrelevant excuses because you're full of shit, so you can't do the basic proof. Prove it because that never happened. Replying, okay, I give up, you're a liar. Replying to me about being disabled, okay.
Back and forth. ChaCha gets super defensive and starts strawmanning every single...
Brad, you're stirring stuff up. Just stop for the night. It's only making everything worse. Nobody is asking for anything more than what you did already. Yep, this checks out for someone with heart conditions. If I stand, I might faint. Why are you not getting this? You can take it sitting down. Why are you not paying attention to the people trying to help? Calm down, don't crash out. Then how'd you take the first one 30 minutes ago? 2, you can literally do it sitting down. Bit late. I stood and after felt dizzy. It's postural. When I stand, I'm more prone to fainting. Yeah, this is definitely kind of indicative of just kind of... I mean, she is crashing out. She is kind of not thinking logically. So she's just kind of saying things and trying to desperately salvage the situation. That's why I think the lies are so bad. It's not that she's necessarily stupid. She might be, but I don't think that's what this is. Okay, so this is the case of the lies are starting to kind of fall apart, and instead of just kind of dipping out, she's desperately trying to recover. And when you're trying to recover on the spot, and you're panicking, because I think she is panicking at this point, the lies become not very convincing. So that's what I think is happening here.
thing Brett says. And then her audience jumps in to back her up.
Okay, let's see. Why would you want to add fuel to the fire then? Good. Now stop, you're done, log off, unplug your router, and take a break. Unironically, this is the best advice she's received. I know I said this so many times in this video already, but if she just took a break from the internet, did not engage for a couple of weeks, so much of what she is dealing with in a negative sense would just go away. Am I missing the paper? What the fuck, you didn't say that? Causing a person with autism extra stress and then being angry they're not able to do exactly what you want. Yep, that's definitely the same person. Same hand, same hair, same shirt. Paper does not matter. You're just being a dick to be a dick at this point. Just stop. Again, I really hate people using autism as a shield. Having any type of neurodivergence, because, you know, I've mentioned about as likely to be autistic as you can get without a official hard diagnosis. Also, I am diagnosed with ADHD, pretty hardcore ADHD, in fact. They do cause certain difficulties in life. However, that is not an excuse. Even if I could have like trouble with dealing with certain scenarios, that's not a reason for me to behave poorly in a situation. If let's say ChaCha is autistic, she actually is kind of being overwhelmed by the stressful situation, because that is something that can happen. The solution is not to just crash out and act crazy and do all these things. The solution is to take a step back. Even if there's still an ongoing kind of back and forth, take a step back. Once you've calmed down, come back and say, okay, I was kind of losing my head. I needed to take a step back, and then continue from there, assuming she doesn't just ignore it entirely, which is something I've been saying she should do. That's how you engage with that stuff. It is not the world's responsibility to cater to you for the most part. Like, it's different if it's something like, having a wheelchair ramp for a public building. But, like, you can't expect the world to adjust their behavior to account for the fact that your brain is wired differently. It is your responsibility to understand the ways that you're different and figure out how to use that and how to adapt to that and work within the society that exists. That is something I do believe firmly. For example, I have pretty bad executive dysfunction. It is hard for me to do the things that I need to do in a daily sense. It is like an ongoing struggle where I need to essentially force myself to do things like, brush my teeth or clean my apartment. I've come up with ways to do that and figured out how to kind of make myself do these things I need to do because they don't come naturally to me. That is what I do instead of complaining that the world is so difficult that I have to do these things that I'm not wired to do. That is how I view things. And that is how just kind of, instead of complaining that the game is rigged against you, play the game to the best of your ability, adapt to your current situation. Yeah, some people are going to have it easier than you, but that's no excuse to not do your best.
Using Brett of trolling and stirring shit for even asking her to follow the instructions in the first place. ChaCha then insists that Brett is being so mean to her, and her community is like, oh my god, don't listen to them, ChaCha, we believe you. The pictures are obviously you. It's undeniable proof. Then one of them explains to Brett that ChaCha is autistic and accuses Brett of being a dick.
I'm not going to
for
go to tangent again,
her.
but that...
Brett responds calmly that she actually understands autism perfectly well because she's...
Yeah, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier, where I do believe that content creators are disproportionately autistic, at least disproportionate compared to the broader society. Because I do think that the ways that your brain is different with autism does kind of lend itself to being good at creating engaging and interesting content. So I do think it is... saying somebody is not sensitive to autism in the content creator space has a greater than average likelihood of blowing up in your face, because a lot of the people you're going to interact with are going to be autistic. Like, every so often you hear about a big YouTuber or a big streamer who reveals that they're autistic, and I'm kind of just like, yeah, no shit, watch 2 of their videos, it's obvious. And that's not an insult or anything like that, it's just an average appraisal of the situation.
He's autistic too, to which another one of ChaCha's community members replies, shocker. And the irony, this whole situation originally started because she accused Adfree of being ableist, if you remember properly. But now she's completely ignoring her own community member, making an actually ableist comment towards Brett. Eventually, after enough...
Okay, I again, devil's advocate, saying shocker, I don't know that that's necessarily ableist. Like, you could interpret it that way, but I think that would require a bit of a... I think that's a bit of a stretch. I don't know, because... And granted, that's one of those things where I almost kind of said almost the same thing earlier, where, you mentioned that a YouTuber might reveal that they're, oh yeah, by the way, I'm autistic, and I would like, yeah, no shit. That's kind of the thing, because there are times you can tell that somebody is autistic, just by the way they engage with things, the way they think, the way they behave. And even voice patterns can be an indicator of autism. Like, autism voice is a real thing. And though I think I don't really fall into that much, I don't think I really have that much autism voice. Again, I might be biased because it's my own voice. My own voice sounds normal to me. But I do notice sometimes some of the speech patterns that are common among autistic people do kind of sneak their way into my voice, although I'm usually not doing that just because I just one of the things I do is when I record my videos, I'm kind of very aware of how I speak. I've kind of trained myself to speak in a way that I think is good for videos. So I think I may have actually trained some of those behaviors out of me. But maybe that's just, I'm just autistic about my voiceover. So, but yeah, autism voice is a thing. So being able to tell somebody is autistic is not necessarily an insult.
Bickering, they're like, okay, fine, if you can't stand up, just take the photo sitting down, but at least do it in the same room with the same lighting, please. So she comes back with another photo.
Hey, Alan, glad you could make it.
This time, the pink hair is back, and sure, she's wearing the same t-shirt, but notice one crucial detail? She's not even in a hospital room anymore. At that point, that was the final straw for Brett.
And actually, I do think this image actually does a good job of showcasing what I said earlier, how lighting actually does make a very big difference. And even similar lighting, because this actually, okay, so granted, the lighting in your bedroom is not going to be the same as the lighting in a hospital room. However, this does appear to be the same shirt, assuming this is a real picture. This does appear to be the same shirt. It was white in the previous picture. The way the lighting and the shadows cast on this one makes it look pink. So, yeah. And I think a big reason for that is because it is next to pink and a whiter white. So, it's important to acknowledge those kind of things.
So many more. At that point, that was the final straw for Brett. After that, she was convinced ChaCha was lying, and so was I. And as these things usually go, suddenly more of ChaChaChilla's previous victims started to come out to share their own experiences with her one by one. One of them was Froggy. I had a run with ChaChaChilla in the past where she actively accused me of removing her on Discord for still being involved with the man that essayed her without any proof whatsoever. He was my previous manager that I personally spoke out about on Twitter. I warned friends and had her back completely when everything occurred. I simply removed her on Discord as she was super weird towards me and very forceful about a friendship that was non-existent, but she went fully crazy and made a Twitter call-out post. Her post is absolutely BS. She's trying to save face. She never properly apologized to me either after deleting her post.
Okay, and that is another issue that is common in content creation, but also very specifically in VTubing, is parasocial behavior, where the reason it's a problem in VTubing specifically is because VTubing kind of started in Japan as it was modeled after the idol industry, which the idol industry is like, for those who are unfamiliar, which I imagine most of the people watching me are weeps, so you kind of understand this intrinsically, but in Japan, the idol industry is kind of like, if you remember when boy bands were popular in the US, where, you had like Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, that type of dynamic where it was a group that was essentially built by industry professionals and marketed where they're almost the figureheads as opposed to the traditional structure of a band creating their own stuff and slowly building their own name before getting brought on to a label that can push them up even higher. Boy bands were kind of built by the industry. The idol culture kind of works the same way. While there are independent idols, especially nowadays with the rise of social media, it's much more common than it used to be. The big idol groups have always been kind of built by a production studio that'll kind of build an identity around them, and then they can kind of replace members. So it's almost the group itself is its own entity. And the members in it are just kind of components of that entity, and that's why you can have different generations of an idol group where the entire cast will essentially get fired, and then they'll bring on new people to fill their names. VTubing kind of started as modeled off of that. So a lot of VTube agencies, especially the early and the big ones, like VShojo not really did that, but Niji-Sanji and Hololive are the two big ones from Japan. They absolutely act in this way where they build up their talents to be almost like larger than life, and they strongly encourage this parasocial behavior because you can make a lot of money off of parasocial followers. So parasocial behavior kind of is a norm in VTubing, and then it made its way over to the West, and a lot of Western agencies or the English branches of Japanese agencies kind of followed the same patterns. That's why a lot of corpo VTubers have a completely different feeling than like an indie VTuber. Although, again, indie VTubers are becoming more and more popular, agencies are slowly dying out, and a lot of agencies are kind of rejecting that kind of approach to content creation as well. But basically, what I'm trying to get at is parasocial behavior is very, very common in content creation in general, but especially in VTubing. Clearly, it can happen among creators as well, where ChaChaChilla is a creator herself. I don't know how popular she was, but she was popular enough that people knew who she was. And whenever parasocial stuff happens, it's probably even worse if you're in a position of some relevance. Because now she is kind of a colleague with other people. She knows these people who know who she is, and it's a different dynamic than a viewer and a creator. So it's probably even easier to develop these parasocial feelings when you're in a creator space as opposed to just a viewer space. So I think she's, she seems to have a consistent pattern of latching on to other VTubers and having the idea that they are much closer than they actually are. So it's a very dangerous mindset to have. Well, again, that's why I kind of try to discourage any kind of parasocial behavior before it starts in my communities, because I'm not large enough to really have a significant issue with parasocialism yet. As I've mentioned, I have a little bit under 7,000 subscribers on my main YouTube channel. At this point today, my highlights channel hasn't even launched yet, but I don't know how many I'm ever going to get on that. And also, as a male VTuber, one of the positives about that is that I don't really have any ability to market myself on sex appeal unless I really pushed for a female audience, which would require me to do content that I don't really care about. So I'm probably not going to have that type of parasocial behavior to any significant degree ever. But even so, I try to kind of make it clear that even though I may interact with some of you guys, you don't really know me and I don't really know you. And I don't want us to act like have any kind of personal relationship that we don't actually have. Because while it would be easy for me to sexually extract money out of you if we had that kind of dynamic going on, it can also be very, very dangerous. It would be unhealthy for the person with the parasocial attraction and dangerous for the person on the other end, which would be me. So yeah, despite content creation and VTubing kind of having that parasocial element built in, I really push back on parasocial behavior for exactly this type of reason.
And then she adds, as she didn't take my warning as a sign to leave me alone, I'm going to take this a step further. Making these kinds of posts about me simply removing you shows you had malicious intent when DMing friends about me. You were telling them as if this were fact. I supported you completely when everything had happened.
Okay, so I will be just devil's advocate here. I think when people get really parasocial, it's not necessarily malicious behavior. I think it is essentially a social maladaptation, like essentially a mental illness, or at least related to mental illness, kind of in that same sphere. Because I think a lot of times when people have these parasocial relationships, they genuinely believe that their delusions are reality. Like they genuinely believe that they are friends with these people that they are not actually friends with. Or when they're associates like this, where, Froggy knew Cha-Cha on a casual basis, like they were friendly, acting like they were best friends. I think Cha-Cha genuinely believed that they were like really, really close. And, when you see people develop stalkers, I think a lot of times they genuinely believe that they have this special connection or that they're meant to be together or anything like that. I don't think these people are being like malicious. They're just genuinely deluded. And then when they're kind of confronted with a rejection of their delusion, they just freak the fuck out. They have no idea how to engage with that. They have no idea how to process that. And that kind of tends to have them just kind of spiral and just completely do a 180 to where they're like, now there is an irrational hatred of that person. And that's when they kind of go off the deep end. That's why I really don't like parasocial behavior. It's dangerous. While most of the time it doesn't go anywhere, for that small percentage of times, it really just goes terribly. And that's what I think is happening with ChaCha. I think she has a tendency to develop parasocial relationships, which is why I also think she's probably not built for content creation or for being a public figure. She's probably just better off just kind of going offline, getting a regular job, and just keeping her head down. I think that would be better, both for her public image, but also just for her mental health.
Reasoning as to why I removed you, you only ever DM me when needing or wanting favors, and I found that distasteful. Spam DMing our mutual friends on Discord about me removing you for the reason you were connected to SA is disgusting and completely malicious.
Okay, and I will say, this may be a hot take, but I actually don't necessarily have a problem with people being essentially friends for career reasons, like essentially wanting to be friends with somebody specifically because it's a boost to your content creation presence. My thing is just be honest about it. Like, let's say hypothetically I was in a situation where, let's say I had 1 million subscribers, I was doing well on YouTube, everything was going great, and I had like clout next to my name, which I don't really at the moment. Hypothetically, if someone basically said, hey, I want to be associated with you, I think we can make good content together, I don't really have any interest in actually being like having a genuine friendship with you. I just don't think we have the type of personalities that would connect in that way, or maybe they're just not looking for more friends at the moment. But I would like to kind of have a back and forth where we do content on each other's channels and we do kind of mutually promote each other and we kind of have this interaction with each other. I would be okay with that. I would be like, yeah, fair enough. That's what you want to do. That's how it's going to be. And yes, it's like a give and take. I'm not against that as long as you're just honest and upfront that that's what you want. It's when you try to pretend to be a real friend to somebody only for it to kind of fall apart when you can't get anything out of them. That's when I take issue with it. Because, again, I'm happy to make real friends in the content creation space. I'm happy to make friends of convenience, as long as I know where we stand.
Don't bring something like this back up for traction on your socials, and please leave me alone. And Froggy includes some screenshots of ChaChaChilla saying things like, I feel like cutting somebody out of your life because they're a survivor of abuse, especially when you introduce them to said abuser, is just indecent. I think it's very unfortunate what some people will judge some people because of. Basically, she's insinuating here that because she was introduced by Froggy to her alleged SA'er, she's insinuating that she's played a hand in getting SA'd, and that's just completely messed up. Froggy has the right to establish boundaries with other people and content creators. ChaChaChilla also adds, so I establish boundaries.
This is the dumbest, most guilt-tripping comment I've ever seen. I'm sorry this person has been harassing you like this. It's so insane, and some people are validating this behavior. Like, how is it not okay for streamers to set boundaries with other streamers now? And yeah, that's another thing I don't really get, where if somebody says they want to, keep their distance from you, there are so many content creators out there. There are so many VTubers out there. It is completely reasonable to just distance yourself from somebody. Even if it's just a case of, hey, this person is just kind of an agent of chaos, they get involved in a lot of drama, I kind of want to keep myself away from that. Even that's completely reasonable. Or, they're friends with somebody I'm not cool with. I just rather avoid that situation entirely. So many legitimate reasons to distance yourself from somebody without anyone being in the wrong. And you can, it would be so easy for her to just never mention her, never interact anymore. And nobody would even say anything. Most people wouldn't even realize that they were keeping their distance from one another. Like, the only time people ever actually notice when somebody is avoiding somebody else in the content creation space is if they were formerly connected, like if they were formerly publicly friends. That's when it becomes weird. But even then, sometimes it can be just, oh yeah, no, I just haven't really talked to them in a while. We just kind of grew apart. That could be believable as well. So, yeah, I never understood really latching on to another content creator like that and making it a public issue. But again, parasocial behavior, people don't think rationally when they're parasocially connected to somebody.
With other people and content creators. ChaChaChilla also adds, so I asked a licensed psychiatrist this, would you say that outside of extreme scenarios that it's healthy to cut somebody out of your life without any warning or justification or closure? Let's say in an example, they had been friends for 6 months.
Yeah, this is also not something that should be used in an argument. I mean, honestly, it is fine to kind of float hypotheticals if you happen to know a professional and just kind of, explore ideas and think through things. I think that can be fun to kind of just think through things. But generally, if 2 sentences is not going to be enough to accurately assess a situation, especially a significant situation like cutting out a friend or just kind of distancing yourself from somebody. There's so much information that's going to go into that and so many factors that are going to affect the justifications and the mindsets of everybody involved. Again, 2 sentences isn't going to be enough. It can be fine for a hypothetical, just fun theory crafting moment, because, again, I have multiple medical professionals in my family. Sometimes I'll just kind of, discuss something medical with them, give a hypothetical, kind of get their take on things, or watching something on TV or in a YouTube video and saying, okay, if this was real, what would happen? That's fine, but using it as an argument or something serious, that is not useful.
Yes, the answer to that is yes, Cha-Cha. Anyhow, this turned into another avalanche of other people revealing things on her. Someone else adding, she rubbed me the wrong way when she didn't give me the time of day because I didn't have the numbers and she was always running towards people that had it. It was so strange because I didn't think of her as a number, I just wanted friends in the space. What in the cloud chaser is this?
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like, again, she clearly wants to develop. I think she does have some parasocial behaviors, but she also has a tendency to gravitate towards friendships of convenience, which, once again, I think would be fine if you're just honest about it. Just say, this is what I'm interested in. And honestly, I think people will respect the honesty of just saying, hey, I'm not in this to be social with people for real. I'm in this because I want to grow my platform. I want to be a success on this platform. I want to do things like this. I think people would be completely understanding of that, because it's not a bad thing to be a content creator and want to succeed as a content creator and wanting to work towards being a more successful content creator. And sometimes interacting with other content creators is a way of achieving that goal. Nobody's going to fault you for having that desire. It's when you fake it that's the problem. Because, personally, I'm the kind of person where I would prefer to make genuine connections. I am friendly with just about everybody I interact with. Again, I kind of act like a bit of a gremlin online, but when I'm actually talking with somebody, I'm decent to people. I don't try to fuck anyone over. And I've been friendly with people who have, 10 subscribers, and I've been friendly with people who've had, 50,000. I've had friendly interactions with everyone on the spectrum. And I'm also a person who I don't ask for any kind of career support from anybody or anything like that. A lot of times I'm actually even kind of measure myself because I don't want something to be interpreted as, hey, help me grow. So when, I have a bigger content creator shout out one of my videos, oh, that's really nice, but that's not what I'm going for. I'm interacting with you to interact with you. And I feel almost a little bit uncomfortable mentioning my own content when talking to other content creators because I don't want it to be interpreted as self-promotion.
And because this kind of stuff always snowballs further, and also because the internet never forgets, a third past life finally surfaced. This one called Nia Therese, and naturally, that one had its own
How big was
purpose.
that?
This one called
84 subscribers. Okay. Or 84 subscribers on YouTube and 1.4K on Twitter. That is... Oh, no, 1.4K on Twitch. Okay. So not a no-name. At least on Twitch. But still, it's not a big account by any stretch of the imagination. So, the fact that people were able to dig this up again, having past lives in general is not always a red flag. Having multiple past lives is a little bit of a red flag if you weren't forced into it by becoming a corpo VTuber, because, again, I know that a lot of the corpos kind of require you to give up your past life to join them as your own character that they own, and then once you leave, then you're free to return to your past life or to start a new persona. That is a little bit different, but, again, being an indie, having to rebrand multiple times, that's a red flag.
Nia Therese, and naturally, that one had its own mess attached to it. Paradigm Shift says as to Nia Cherise that she tried to cancel me on my birthday subathon when I was being vulnerable to her privately, and she twisted my insecurities to try and scare me out of the VTubing space.
Yeah, that is one thing I also found very interesting. One thing that multiple VTubers I've seen that have kind of exploded, or imploded, I should say, the thing that kind of gets them a lot of times is that they view other content creators as competition, which in a sense they are, but also not really. Or particularly, I mean, it's probably more of a case in streaming than in regular YouTube, because for me, streaming is just a side thing. My main focus is on actual video content, because that's what I enjoy doing. That's where I think my best work is. And honestly, even the streams, a lot of it is just streaming to lightly edit and then put on YouTube after the fact. That's kind of how I approach streaming. So I do understand that streaming is a little bit more competitive just because you can only really watch one streamer at any given moment in time. But as far as content creation goes, there's enough there for everybody to win, or at least for enough people to win, that you don't need other people to fail for you to succeed. Like, it's not like running like a restaurant where, you know, people can only have lunch once in the day. In content creation, you can watch one person's videos and also another person's videos. Trying to fight other people in this content creation space to get yourself one fewer competitor, that just doesn't have the results you think you're going to get out of them. So that always kind of baffled me. And it just more often than not leads to people kind of going a little bit insane and damaging themselves more than anyone else.
She also tried to drive a wedge between me and one of my best friends while screwing them out of hundreds of dollars. Seeing you do all of this and worse to so many other people makes me fucking sick. 3 years later, you haven't changed a bit. Fuck off and never come back. And just like that, a new accusation was added to the already growing pile of misconducts ChaCha had done. Scamming.
Music
One
is
more
getting
for the
intense.
bingo card. And on top of that, now ChaCha had done. Scamming. One more for the
Oh, she didn't even add to the bingo card. Come on.
bingo card. And on top of that, now that the cats were out of the bags and that her previous identities were finally revealed, a lot more people
was it?
were out of the bags
Sorry,
and that
one
her
thing that's
previous
bugging me.
identities were
Why is the profile picture off center there? I don't know. A not safe for work voice actor and VTuber and your favorite anime girlfriend. Oh, she was one of those.
finally revealed, a lot more people started coming forward. Now, knowing your
Death
bunny, I got
VTuber?
a lot to say. You stalk my friends, dox them, spread misinformation, and play victim. Not to mention, back at TwitchCon Vegas, you invited
This
yourself
music
to a
is fucking
friends-only
hilarious.
dinner with my group. Mix your meds with soju, and then say my friends abandoned you. Victoria the Sun Eater then also comes out to back Juso's story. They were nice enough to bring you back to your
Okay, so they mentioned, okay, mixing meds with soju. I'm assuming that's alcohol. I'll be perfectly honest, I say I don't know for sure, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I would be hesitant about commenting on that kind of thing, just because you're not necessarily going to know how somebody else's medication interacts with alcohol better than they are. Because I will say, you know, one thing is I take a medication that does have interactions with alcohol, and that sounds like it's really bad when I mention, oh, I'm having a beer now, that kind of thing. But I know how they interact. I know what effect they're going to have on me. And it is not the effect that probably immediately makes you think of. Like, I'm not going to pass out due to this interaction. All that's happening is I need to drink more water than usual. Otherwise, my hangover will be really bad. That's essentially how my medication interacts with alcohol. So I am not super comfortable in bringing that up as a criticism unless it has very obvious effects. Like if you are taking like a narcotic and alcohol and it makes you pass out, that's when it's fair to criticize. But just saying you're taking medication and you're also drinking, that makes me a little uncomfortable.
room despite barely any of us knowing you, and you have the audacity to once again try and make a fun event for everyone about yourself. I don't use the word parasite often, but I should use it more. Log off and seek help. And for context, since people don't realize what I'm speaking about, the person I curated was once known as Bunny Alisu. Then Victoria the Sun Eater also backs out Juzo's story. She says, I was
What's
there
crazy is one thing, I haven't really pointed this out, but all of this stuff is happening over the course of like 2 days. Because if you remember, the supposed hospital visit was on November 17th. And I think the original call out was either the 17th or the 18th. Like, this is all kind of happening all at the same time.
There for that, and yes, it did happen, and spent the majority of the time in the car trying to pressure me to add her on Discord, and I told her no. I remember hearing about that. I'm so sorry you even have to deal with that, Vex. It's all good. I'm sorry you had to deal with it too, but I wanted you to know that I vouch for your statement because I was at that dinner with Zola.
I will also say one thing completely unrelated to anything. I might not be as terminally online as I think I am, because most of these people, I have no idea who any of them are.
Moving on to Sin City Alley, an artist who had also an unfortunate experience with fur. They write, to the piece of shit, aka ChaChaChilla TTV, FKA Bunny Elisu, remember when you harassed my fucking friend and lied about it after you deleted the evidence? Remember when you got banned from my friend's server and tried to blackmail them to be let back in?
Okay, this is again completely unrelated to anything we're talking about, but like, I have kind of two mindsets right now, because on the one hand, I really hope I'm never actually directly involved with a drama like this. But I also know deep down that if I was involved in a situation where somebody fucked around with somebody I care about and like tried to hurt one of my friends, I know I would be going to war, because that's just not, I feel like do right by the people that I care about, especially the people who do right by me. That's just what I feel like is important to me, but like, who? And yeah, and it's the thing is, what happened is it's kind of a small incident that she just kept making. This is the story's about ChaChaChilla, who's a VTuber who kind of destroyed her career in a very short amount of time. She essentially, the cliff notes is that she tried to get another VTuber canceled for being supposedly ableist. It kind of fell apart almost instantly, because the evidence was weak. She actually misidentified the person entirely. And then she just kind of kept making it worse and worse and worse. And then old skeletons kind of got revealed. So she apparently has in the past, she had multiple past lives. Apparently she wronged a lot of people, and it all kind of collapsed on her at once.
Remember when you made a fake note and emailed it to others and then came back the next day and acted like nothing happened? Remember when you trauma dumped to me about shit I couldn't give two shits about, your pathetic excuse of existence? I certainly remember. Rebranding ain't gonna save you. You've been a real scumfuck to my friends and a nuisance to me. Never come back. Oh, blackmail and fake note? That's another scratch off my back.
She also invite yourself to someone's dinner. She forgot that one. And people have complained. She made allegations of stalking and doxing, so there's that.
Bingo cards. This situation is just getting wilder and wilder every time I take a look at it, and I feel like soon we're gonna find out she's Lumi Starbun or something. Additionally, it seemed that ChaChaChilla, aka Bunny Elisu, had attended wilder every time I take a look at it, and I feel like soon we're gonna find out she's Lumi Starbun or something. Additionally.
Okay, so on YouTube, she had 376 subscribers. So she really was like, and I'm not saying this necessarily to be insulting, but like, she did not have a large presence in content creation before she did this. I mean, granted, there was also the fact that she had several past lives that had their own following, so she kind of had to restart twice, but 376 subscribers is not a lot. I always call myself microscopic on YouTube, and I'm just pushing 7,000, so she really is microscopic in the grand scheme of things. She just had that much of an implosion. Like it's actually kind of impressive to have this small of a following but upset this many people at the same time. Because normally, if you are essentially a no-name on social media, and you act like a gremlin and do something stupid, people are just kind of maybe have like a snide comment about you and then move on. This is like actually kind of really telling to me.
It seemed that ChaChaChilla, aka Bunny,
and 1.4k followers on Twitter. So again, that's, I mean, my Twitter is not this big. I have a very small Twitter account because I don't play the Twitter game at all. But even 1.4k is not a lot.
Lisu had a tendency to love bomb people, often sending them inappropriate photos they didn't ask for, and trying to get them into one-on-one DM conversations. So really,
Yeah, and that's another thing is, people know that I'm a total fucking gooner. But also don't send me stuff without, like, just don't DM me inappropriate stuff. That's not good. And yeah, net profit she'd have gained if she somehow managed to salvage the situation. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think there was no scenario in which this actually ends up being a net positive for her. Just because it started out very, very small. It was a small, dumb thing she did that ended up snowballing because she just kept making it worse and worse and worse. And she already had these skeletons in her closet that kept getting unveiled as this thing kept getting bigger and bigger. So, I mean, there were multiple points where she could have just cut it off and just kind of stopped the bad in its tracks by just saying, okay, I'm not engaging anymore, and just disappearing for a couple weeks before coming back. Because one thing I say all the time, the lifespan of drama on the internet, unless it's really, really bad, a couple weeks and people will have forgotten about it, or even if they didn't forget about it, they'll have stopped caring by that point. So there were so many times when she could have just taken a break, not acknowledged, and would have been fine. Because even though none of her past lives or her current presence on YouTube, even though none of them are very substantial, like she never had a huge following, she could have had a possible like impact in the content creation space. Like she could have been a reasonably respected creator because she does show the ability to at least develop a small following. Like she does have that ability. And I will say Logan Paul is one of those instances where he is, for all of his flaws, he is very good at navigating controversy for the most part. He does do some things that are stupid, but he's also at the point where his inertia is so great that he can't really be touched unless it's something really, really serious. Because, like, there are only, like, really two scenarios that I can think of where he completely lost out on overall. The one would be the Japanese forest scenario, because that was just pushed it a little bit too far. Even though he did recover from it, I do think that was a net negative for him. And then there was the CryptoZoo fiasco where he... And I think that's a case where he probably made it even worse by suing over the videos that were made about him. I think that kept that in the public conversation longer than it had to be. But for the most part, he's had controversy after controversy. He knows how to just tank that shit. And also, I will say, the fact that he's now kind of has these corporate ties... Yeah, it was the CoffeeZilla scenario. Yes, he was the one who sued. If he just kind of left that be, that I think people wouldn't be talking about CryptoZoo anymore. But one thing is that Logan Paul now has enough ties with corporate things and other people that he's kind of untouchable unless he commits like crimes that result in jail time, basically. Because, he has his financial stuff with, even though Prime is not really doing that well nowadays, it's still a big business venture. He's got money for the rest of his life, no matter what happens. And he also has a job in the WWE. And again, for all the criticisms you can make of Paul as a person, because I think he's a piece of shit, he is actually very, very good in pro wrestling. Like, he knows what he's doing. He has the athleticism, and he knows how to play the crowd. He is an excellent heel. I hate saying that he's actually really good in WWE, but I can't lie and say he's not. Like, he actually is he kind of has a talent for professional wrestling, and that pisses me off. But yeah, getting off of that tangent. But yeah, Logan Paul, as much as you can criticize him, he's very good at handling controversy.
It tracks with all the stories that have been coming out and that we've been hearing so far, and it also tracks with Sarah's story, who tweeted, "Nobody is entitled to another person's time." Noticing that somebody unadded on Discord nearly immediately shows a level of uncomfortable observation if you don't speak to the person. ChaChaChilla literally messaged me constantly with little to no response. It was often to promote herself and her hard work, which was strange as we had hardly spoken.
Yeah, and that's another thing. As somebody who does content creation, I don't know, I feel very uncomfortable promoting myself, except for on my own platform. So like, if I make a video, I will tweet about it, I will post it in my Discord channel, and that's about it. constantly promoting myself to other people, to strangers and that thing, something about that would make me deeply uncomfortable. I really don't like to do it, even though if there are extents where I can do it in ways that aren't like socially bad, I still don't want to. It just doesn't feel right. I don't know. I prefer to put that energy into just making better content as opposed to trying to really push myself in other directions where, I don't know. That's just another mindset I don't really understand, but I don't know. I kind of understand when people really want to do well on their content creation thing, because content creation is an exciting thing. It feels really good when people respond positively to the content you make. It feels really good when numbers go up, but yeah, I don't know. So I do kind of understand the mindset, but I also kind of don't.
It's clear that she sticks to her morals, but she's very diligent about taking offense to anything and everything and outing it. She subtweeted me immediately after she realized I unadded her. I've heard from many that she has treated them with aggressiveness in response to things she has taken offense to quite often. I don't condone the idea of threats towards anybody. I do believe that taking accountability for your action is important though. And then Valkyria also finds out that she's Bunny Elisu and tweets, "Oh, so this is where you've been hiding. This is the girl who crashed a dinner party a friend and I hosted back in TwitchCon Vegas. Never paid her part of the bill, irresponsibly drank with strangers during the event."
Okay, so I will say, if more than one person is saying that her drinking was not smart, that lends a little bit of credibility to it, but still, it's one of those things where I still feel like, again, I know how I can handle alcohol and how it affects my physical self, how it affects my mental perception of things, and how it interacts with the medications I take. I understand that better than literally anybody else in the world. So hearing this kind of criticism is a little bit things, because, I know exactly how much I can drink to where it'll be dangerous and to where it won't. Part of me feels like other people also kind of have that understanding of themselves if they drink regularly, because that is something you do learn with experience. You learn how much you can handle. There are going to be so many factors that you can't necessarily know off the top of your head. Unless somebody is obviously impaired and obviously doing unsafe things, I feel very uncomfortable criticizing the amount or the method in which somebody else drinks in an individual scenario. So like, even if I go on another tangent to explain what I'm talking about, even in the situation, if I don't know if anybody have heard about the that Smash player who got really drunk at a streaming event and ended up just behaving irresponsibly with some of the women there, and he got in a lot of trouble for it. The host of that event, it was Ludwig. He got into a lot of controversy as well because he kind of encouraged the drinking to continue. One of the talking points I didn't agree with all that criticism is that they mentioned that his blood alcohol was very, very high. And they were saying, oh, it's getting to the point of that being life-threatening. I don't necessarily agree with that, just because, yeah, it was Mango. Thank you for reminding me of his name. I completely forgot. I don't engage with any of these people, really, so I don't remember names very well. But, the issue is that this guy was, a pretty well-built guy, but also a experienced heavy drinker. To where the amount that he drank, while it was a lot, while his BAC was very high, he was very drunk. I do not believe that with his scenario in particular, that it was at the level that it was actually life-threatening. Unless he were to fall asleep and choke on its vomit, which can happen even if you're not very drunk. Again, so people saying, oh, they were he was encouraging him to drink to deadly amounts. That I think is a bit of an unfair criticism. Just because, again, different people are going to have different effects with alcohol, and people are generally going to know how they interact with alcohol, even an alcoholic like Mango. So this is why that particular criticism of ChaChaChilla, of drinking irresponsibly, not super comfortable with it.
And to which a good handful of the group brought her back to her hotel, only to then say, "We abandoned you because one of the men felt uncomfortable spending the night with you after he mixed your meds with alcohol."
Okay, I will say it is completely fair. So while he mentioned that, mixing meds with alcohol, I'm not comfortable with that as a criticism, it is completely fair for the guy to say, you know what, I kind of want to distance myself from this. I don't feel comfortable in this scenario. That is perfectly reasonable. I think in that scenario, you just do what you can to make sure somebody is safe, and then extracting yourself from the situation. So if somebody is drunk and potentially there's medications that are exacerbating the issue, I think bringing them to their hotel room, laying them on their side, and then going away and then checking up on them the next day, perfectly valid boundary to have. Like, say, I made sure you're safe, but I'm not engaging any more than that. That's fine. So that is a little bit different. And yeah, to explain the situation as I understand it, Alan, Mango was being a little bit too, like he apparently him being kind of weird and a little sexual is kind of part of his personality, part of his brand. That's kind of how he just is, and it gets worse when he drinks. And he kind of took it too far with some of the women during that stream. And yeah, I mean, ultimately it kind of fell back more on Ludwig because he was the host of the event. He encouraged the drinking, and he's also just the bigger name. But I will say, as much as that situation was kind of awful all around, it does seem like Mango's actually getting help, which I think is ultimately a good thing. He's trying to turn his life around. I think that should be supported. And ultimately, that drama is one I don't really care all that much about. It was interesting for a few days, and then I stopped caring.
Also followed my friend group for a whole day around the event out of nowhere. Got one of their IRL phone numbers somehow to harass them in sakes of clearing your name.
Yeah,
Spread
that's
multiple rumors about majority of my friends as well as myself. Have sent lewd photos of yourself to me with zero consent, to which you have since deleted.
Yeah, that's not
have
good
tried
as well.
self-inviting yourself to gaming lobbies I hosted with friends. Have harassed and stalked multiple people I cared about.
And I will also reiterate, as much as I have the online reputation of being a total gooner, because, I do have in the past and in the future reviewed porn games and hentai, that is something that I am open about, that I don't care that people know that I've engaged with explicit material. That's part of my brand. That's part of what people know about me. Even despite all that, I still do not want people sending images of themselves unprovoked. Like, that is just something I don't want to do. And actually, one thing I've actually been said publicly, not like that I've publicized this and like shouted it from the rooftops or anything, but people that I actually have interactions with, people I actually know personally, I very much do not want to see anything explicit of them. Like, I'm not going to say names, but there was somebody I'm friendly with who had on a couple of occasions done NSFW content. It wasn't like a big part of what they were, but they've done it a couple of times. And by the way, I don't guess any names or anything. I will not confirm or deny anything, because the actual person doing this is not important. But one thing I've actually expressed is that, like, I definitely do not want to engage with that at all. To me, it's weird when I know the person on the other side of the screen, and I'm not in a relationship where that would be normal. Like, if it's a partner of mine and I'm like, and they're sending me images, okay, that's fine. But if it's somebody I know and I'm seeing them in a way that is not like platonic, that feels so it makes me viscerally uncomfortable. So despite the fact that I am, just self-admittedly kind of a gooner, that is a line I do have. So it would be more understanding of me of somebody to assume that's okay with me to send images to me than it would be in this scenario. And it's still not okay to do it to me. So that's one of the things. Just don't do that. If it's something you want to do, just get the okay first. Like, it might be weird to ask, but it's weirder to just send it.
You have doxed my friends and sent me
Yeah, and
private
obviously
messages
doxing is
from
not
some of my
okay.
friends out of context and trying to clear your name. I've had so many bridges burned because of you, but I will not tolerate you trying to blame your behavior on incredible people that have done nothing but to help you. I really don't like touching shit like this with a 10-feet pole, but you affected so many people I care about and can't even find it in yourself to take a crumb of accountability even after all these years. Seek professional help, grow the fuck up, and leave people the fuck alone.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I mentioned this earlier, but I hope I'm never involved in any kind of drama like this. I know it's definitely a possibility, especially if I continue growing. I'm growing slowly, but I am still growing. So there's always the possibility that I could be dragged into something like this. I hope that never happens. But also, I completely understand saying, hey, you fucked with my friends. You hurt people I care about. I'm going to war. So this mindset, like, right, she's saying, you know, you messed with people I care about. Go the fuck away. I do completely understand that reaction. And I would probably react the same way in a similar circumstance.
By the way, 2 of the people that went with her were fucking medical professionals, and she still said she was abandoned. Velcro even...
I will say, just again, devil's advocate. When somebody is extremely intoxicated, which it's being implied that Cha was very, very intoxicated at the time. If that's the case, it is, technically speaking, safest to have somebody there at all times. At the same time, you can't expect anyone individually to be responsible for being there. Because like the one guy said, he's like, hey, I don't want to really be in this hotel room with somebody who is so clearly intoxicated. That's just a risky scenario. I don't feel comfortable with it. Perfectly fair. I say once you take reasonable precautions to make somebody safe, which in the case of somebody being really, really drunk or really, really high or any combination of the two, you make sure they're in a safe space, like a hotel room, get her to her hotel room, make sure she's lying on her side, because that's another important thing. PSA from Adze, if somebody is very under the influence of substances and they're going to sleep or passing out, they need to be laid on their side. So if they throw up, it just ends up next to them instead of choking them, because that's actually how a lot of overdose deaths happen, is that it's not that the drug itself kills them, it's that they choke on their own vomit. So yeah, again, I know it's a bit of a tangent, but you know, I try to say these types of things in the hopes that someday it helps somebody. But yeah, but still, do that, then you can extract yourself. Even if it would be safer to have somebody watching over her, it is fair to have that line.
Added that they didn't want to go to a con for a long time because of this experience. But then comes the twist in the story. ChaCha finally reveals who she was planning on suing when she was raising those lawyer funds. And she tweets, "For those that wanted me to specify, I plan on taking Apollo to court and suing her for slander and defamation. She has stated many false things about me with no evidence to back these claims up." And
okay, so I have things to say about that, but I don't think I'm going to be able to wait right now. I do need to really use the bathroom. I will be right back. I wanted to wait until the end of the video, but I'm yapping a lot this video. That's not a wise decision. I will be right back. For those watching after the fact, I'm going to cut out the next section, so you'll see me in about, 2 seconds. Be right back. Okay.
the internet reacted exactly how you'd expect. Everyone started seriously memeing on her because here's the thing, defamation lawsuits in the US are incredibly hard to win. If you're the plaintiff, you've got to prove not only that the statement was false and caused damage, but especially if you're a public figure, you also have to show actual malice.
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned earlier in the stream, is that actual malice is a bar that you have to meet if you are a public figure. Or sometimes it depends on the context, because like, let's say I am me, Adze, I'm going to sue somebody for defamation. Let's say I'm suing like a coworker for talking shit about me. I probably would not be considered a public figure in that circumstance because it's completely unrelated to my public position, essentially. However, if I was to sue another content creator for defamation, I would be probably considered a public figure for the purposes of that lawsuit. So I would have to prove actual malice. So it does kind of depend on context. But I do believe in this context, ChaCha would be under that burden of proving actual malice. And another thing is that, I was going to say something. And I will say, again, it mentions you have to prove damages unless it's a defamation per se. I don't think that ChaCha, based on the size of her public presence, I don't think there's really going to be any meaningful monetary damages she's going to suffer. Unless it's so bad that it requires her to get therapy or something like that, then she could sue for the cost of therapy and potentially any lost wages from having to skip work to go to that therapy. Potentially. So she would have to rely on there being defamation per se, meaning that it's one of the categories of defamation where damages are presumed. One of those would be like certain crimes. So again, devil's advocate. Apollo did accuse ChaCha of doing revenge porn. I will say I do not believe what ChaCha did meets the legal definition for that. It would be a bit of an uphill battle for her to argue that that rises to the level of defamation. Because, just misunderstanding a word or using a word incorrectly is not necessarily defamatory. Again, you can argue that it's false. It might have been she used the phrase in a colloquial sense, because essentially saying that ChaCha used NSFW images of her or videos of her. I don't really know for sure. Again, this is kind of based on information I've received secondhand, so I don't know 100%, and I would feel really uncomfortable digging into it, so I'm not going to really dig into it. But yeah, it sounds like ChaCha spread images that Apollo had released publicly, which is shitty, but not technically revenge porn. So there's a question there, but I still think that ChaCha would have a real uphill battle when it comes to suing Apollo. Even though, just as a guess, that's probably the best chance she has against anybody would be against Apollo, but even so, I don't think it's a very strong case.
That means the defendant knew it was false or acted with reckless disregard for whether it was true. And on top of that, you must show...
Yeah, and again, that's also another important thing in United States defamation cases, is that unlike some other countries, in the United States, truth is an absolute defense to defamation, so it is on the person doing the lawsuit. They need to prove that the statement was false, or at least not necessarily prove it, but prove it enough so that there's like what they call a preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not. So basically, if you are a theoretical juror and you think there's a 51% chance that it's true and a 49% chance that it's not true, that is a preponderance of the evidence, which is different from a criminal standpoint or stuff that has more serious consequences. Because, for example, if you're going to lose your kids to a court decision, there has to be clear and convincing evidence, which is like more than preponderance of the evidence, but not absolute proof. And then for a criminal case, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, which is not necessarily 100% true, but like there's no reasonable explanation other than that they are guilty, essentially. So that's kind of how this the proof standards work in the United States. Defamation claims have to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the statement was false. Now, I know in places like, I think the UK, you can actually defame somebody with a true statement, which to me is fucking ridiculous, but that's not how it works in the United States. Defamation suits are hard in the United States, and deliberately so.
Real harm, actual losses, not just hurt feelings. So...
Okay, and again, I'll just add the caveat. Generally, you do need to prove actual damages. However, if there's defamation per se, then you don't. I don't think anything that she has been accused of by Apollo really rises to defamation per se, except maybe the revenge porn allegations. But that would also depend on if there's if they live in a place where that is specifically, there's a specific statute against that. Because I think the reason revenge porn laws exist is because they weren't always taken as seriously under the in certain jurisdictions, and it was kind of labeled under a lesser crime. So the lesser crime might not rise to the level of defamation per se. Revenge porn might, depending on the jurisdiction. So I don't know where she was planning on suing Apollo. I don't know any of that, so it may or may not get to that point, but there is a tiny chance that she wouldn't have to actually prove damages, although I don't think she has any actual damages to speak of.
Yeah, when she threatened legal action, it raised one question. Does she even have the evidence to meet those high bars? Because if not, it's really just noise. Then
Well, there's also okay, another factor that is important because I don't know. Again, I've mentioned in the past that I think that lawsuits are interesting. I find the law to be an interesting subject, not enough to study it, but enough to kind of absorb information about it. That oh, I was what the fuck was I just gonna say?
Have the evidence to meet
Let's
those
see.
high bars, because if
Okay,
not,
yeah, okay,
it's
I remember what I was gonna say. Sorry, I completely lost my own train of thought, but I remember what I was gonna say. When it comes to something like this, it's not always also do you have enough evidence to win? A big question is do you have enough to go on to survive a motion to dismiss? Because the first thing that happens in most lawsuits, like the overwhelming amount of times, is the person will file the lawsuit and then the defendant will, or the respondent, depending on your jurisdiction, the words are a little different depending on where you are, they will file a motion to dismiss, which basically says, hey, you should just toss this lawsuit out right away for one of a bunch of reasons. So the most common reasons are either jurisdictional issues, like if somebody tried to sue me in Minnesota, I don't live in Minnesota, I don't work in Minnesota, I have no business dealings in Minnesota. So I would say, hey, I'm going to motion to dismiss for lack of jurisdiction. Say basically the Minnesota courts don't have any power over me, so I shouldn't be forced to engage with this lawsuit. That's one very common way of dismissing a lawsuit early. But also there's failure to state a case, where basically even if they take everything being accused as 100% true, it's still not enough to win a lawsuit. So because it's such a potential slam dunk of getting rid of a lawsuit, every lawsuit starts with a motion to dismiss. Even if they kind of have to make shit up, every lawsuit starts with a motion to dismiss. So the important thing is, does the lawsuit have enough to get past that motion to dismiss? That's an important question because that's when the financial harassment of a lawsuit can start to take effect. Is even if you know you're not going to win, you might be able to put enough pressure on them to either punish them or to kind of pressure them into getting a settlement offer. Because a lot of times, there's another reason that most lawsuits that survive a motion to dismiss end in settlement. The overwhelming majority. Doesn't mean that all those lawsuits were going to win. It just means that sometimes paying a little bit now is better than fighting a lawsuit for years and spending all that money on lawyers.
It's really just noise. But then Apollo jumps in with her own tweet in response. I'm not a very strong person, but I tried to be, so excuse me if I'm more off my element this week. I did a very big thing for myself and it's a big risk, I know, but I am happy I did it. P.S. No one is gonna support your scam, ChaChaChilla, but if you do get any funds, please seek help. And Dan, I know you're watching my tweets. Go ahead, keep sending whoever, doing whatever you think is correct, anything to get under our skin. Aren't you tired? I don't know why you care so much to still be going after people. Let it go and move on with your life.
Okay, and I do think that this is a reasonable response, all things considered. I think it's enough of not backing down while also displaying some degree of consideration, of compassion, and saying, hey, this is not healthy behavior, figure yourself out. But also, I will say, if somebody is seriously considering suing you, the smartest choice is to actually stop talking about it, because there has never been a situation where somebody is being sued and publicly discussing it has helped them. It just doesn't happen. So, I mean, and that's actually another thing that content creators struggle with, is they'll be involved in lawsuits and they will essentially shoot themselves in the foot by talking about it far too much. I could name multiple instances of that just off the top of my head. I don't want to go on another huge tangent, so I'm not going to, but I would say that just based on how this is going, I would say Apollo should probably leave it at that and just move on.
Then, my favorite part.
Jeez.
Mito's management spoke up. Trey Legacy jumps in and his words are scathing. I would love to see you try to come after my talents again. Please do, I'm begging you. I still remember you trying to do a Google Doc last year on your PL and everyone called...
It's always a fucking Google Doc. The Google Docky. Like, I don't know, man. I remember the days when cancellations would happen via Twit longer. I don't know, it just feels like we're in a different era now.
called you out for being stupid. You deleted it multiple times. We were being nice and didn't drop a doc with actual evidence from multiple people, and that was my call, and I regret that decision because you hurt so many people since then. Unlike you, I don't need help getting lawyer fees. If you want to go that route, buckle up and log the fuck in then. It will be the last thing you do on the internet. No matter how many times you try to rebrand and start over, I will find you and call you out again. This isn't a threat. I don't make threats. I'm too nice for that stuff. I make promises.
Okay, so those last 3 sentences are a little bit choony for my tastes, but overall, I get the idea of sometimes saying, "Hey, just back the fuck off." Although, again, this kind of tweet would probably not reflect well if it actually made it to a court, because this could potentially, under certain circumstances, be a way of demonstrating that he has malicious intent towards her. And yeah, I agree with you, Alan. I cringed at the end. This isn't a threat, it's a promise. That's why I said it was just aggressively choony. But I do kind of understand the thought process behind it, basically saying, hey, if you don't back off, I'm going to be a massive thorn in your side. But again, that being said, under the right circumstances, this tweet could potentially be used against him. Probably not going to get to that point, but it could, theoretically.
Ooh, I don't know about you guys, but when he said, I don't make threats, I make promises, I kind of got shivers. Anyways, all of this finally brings us to Menhera apology number 2. And you'd think after all of this, the second apology would be better, right? Wrong. I want to address something important. To everyone who feels hurt by me, whether it was something I said, did, or failed to understand, I'm genuinely sorry. Hearing so many people come forward with their own stories had made me reflect deeply. Even if I don't agree with every detail or remember things the same way, I know that if multiple people are saying they were hurt, then something I did caused that pain, and I have to own that. I'm human, I'm flawed, I make mistakes, and I'm learning that intent isn't the same as impact. I don't want to run from this, and I don't want to hide behind excuses. I want to face my shortcomings and work to be better. I'm committed to growing, listening, and making sure I don't repeat the same mistakes. I know this won't fix everything overnight, and I don't expect immediate forgiveness, but I do hope I can earn trust back over time by changing, not just saying I will. Thank you for those who were honest with me, even when it was painful to hear. I'm going to do better.
Okay, so 2 things. First of all, a response to Alan. Yeah, that's generally how it works. That's more of a criminal law thing than a civil law thing, because there actually are instances in civil law where being quiet can be used against you. It's a complicated thing, but in general, yes, shutting the fuck up is usually the right course of action. But this is another apology where it's one of those things that sounds like it could be good on paper, and it probably in her head sounds like a good apology. But this particular apology at this particular point in the drama is not going to go well for a couple of reasons. For starters, things have already kind of exploded past the point where a simple apology is going to fix anything. The second thing is it doesn't seem to actually have been accompanied by any appropriate change in behavior. And she also just kind of seems like she's checking all the boxes of this is what an apology contains. If she wanted to essentially communicate the same thing and she was genuine, the way she should have done it is probably said, look, she should have acknowledged essentially like specifics, say, look, I kind of crashed out, I spiraled, I made things worse, I kept doubling down on things. Just acknowledging the areas where she actually fucked up would be an important thing. Also saying, and again, like I've said before, I think it is perfectly fair to say, hey, I don't really know how I feel and think about everything here. Things have kind of shaken my perception of things, but I don't really know how to process this in this moment. I need to take some time to actually evaluate things before I really have anything solid. I think that is a perfectly fair thing to say. I think that's a real thing that people feel. Because, let's say you do something stupid and then get called out for it. You're probably not going to immediately do a 180. So that's why whenever people do an apology, say, oh, I noticed everything I did wrong. I really was wrong. I completely understand. I've changed. And it happens like the next day. I don't necessarily believe that. But I can understand people saying, okay, this has kind of made me like stop in my tracks. I need time to process this. And she basically said, look, I think I probably fucked up. I'm going to take some time to really kind of figure all this out for myself. And then, and they're basically saying, I want to be the best person I can be. I'm going to back the fuck off, take time to figure things out. And if I come back, it'll be a better person. I'll be better than ever. If she said that, this apology had a chance of working. This does not work. Because again, it's just kind of, it comes off as very performative. Again, I think it still would have been better for her to just dip out without saying anything and let things cool down and then come back with a response. But this response just made things worse. And also, again, I need to point out, the fact that she keeps making it worse and worse and worse makes it blow up beyond anything that she could have done. Because again, I think it would have been ended with she said something dumb, and then she got clowned on for a little bit, backed off, everybody moves on. That's what it could have been. Now it's gotten to a point where somebody with 300 subscribers on YouTube is making an apology tweet with 1 million views. Like, that's... Everything about this is her just making it worse, and every time she makes it worse, it gets more and more notoriety, and it's just snowballs.
This is wild. There's more than twice as many likes as bookmarks on this post. And not only that, but it's twice as...
And that's a good point. This is a true ratio. People have kind of perverted the use of the word ratio, and not perverted in the fun way, but perverted in the, it doesn't mean what it used to mean. A ratio used to be that you had more replies than likes on your tweet. That is because it was the ratio of replies to likes. Nowadays, when they say ratio, it just usually means a response gets more likes than the original tweet. It doesn't have the same kind of impact. This is a true old school ratio.
Many likes as bookmarks.
That's kind of crazy that there's more bookmarks than replies. That in its own is kind of fucking crazy.
On this post.
And actually, I'm willing to bet a lot of those retweets, the 94 retweets, I'm willing to bet a lot of those are more replies, essentially.
And not only that, but it turns out that she wrote her freaking apology with ChatGPT.
Okay, again, a little bit of devil's advocacy pushback. AI detectors are not accurate. Don't rely on them at all. They can give you a general idea of things, but just because something says this was generated by AI doesn't mean it actually was, and just because something says it's not generated by AI doesn't mean that it wasn't. These things cannot be trusted, because let's not forget, the way language learning models in general work is by mimicking the patterns of the seed data that they're given. The seed data that they're given is actual humans writing and speaking. They are mimicking actual speech patterns. It's just when it comes to ChatGPT, it specifically kind of leans into a certain style, a more neutral, a more academic style. That's why one of the things that you can often use to kind of indicate that something might be ChatGPT is the use of the long dashes, the M dashes, because that's really common in academic writing and in journalistic writing, and that's something that a lot of the seed data they used to convey a neutral tone comes from those sources. So that's why ChatGPT feels like it's not necessarily human. It's because it tries to mimic a certain type of speech, a certain type of writing. But at the end of the day, language learning models take their data from actual human written writing, and they try to mimic the patterns found in that type of writing. So AI detectors can very easily see actual writing that is done 100% by a human and identify it as AI generated. So these cannot be trusted. Do not trust them.
It's been 100% AI generated, which of course ChaCha denies, saying that is not correct. I typed that out myself. Yes, it may be a vague apology, but I could not find every single post that people have posted about me, especially when several of them have blocked me. I think that anything that has too much correct grammar is prone to be classified as AI.
Okay, and as much as I think, I will say, to be fair, there is a good chance that she did ChatGPT that apology. That is a thing that people have done. At the same time, she's also not incorrect that something being written with proper grammar can be defined as AI because, again, AI mimics academic writing. Academic writing tends to have proper grammar. Colloquial writing doesn't always have proper grammar. That's why these things can come across as AI generated. But so she's not actually wrong when she says that certain things like that. Like, one thing is, again, I mentioned the M dashes. Some people just use those. However, if something has M dashes in it, it looks like it's ChatGPT. As much as I do think this was probably an AI generated apology, she is not wrong when saying that people tend to kind of overassume that something is AI.
Sure, Cha-Cha. Another user even proved it was AI by running the apology through a different detection system.
They're not accurate.
Yep,
You
the
cannot
video
trust
shows
them.
the exact same result. Hades, one of Apollo's gen mates,
Oh, I know.
also then
Of
decides to
Hades.
step in. I didn't want to publicly involve myself in this,
This is
but
like the
there's
first
a
VTuber that has been shown up in this whole drama that I've actually seen some of their content. So it's nice that these are not all completely blank faces to me.
0% that you never realized you were hurting people. Back when I first met you, I thought I had found a friend. And then I learned of all the heartless, terrible behavior you inflicted on Apollo. Then you tried to use me to publicly attack Apollo because I was trying to be nice to you before learning everything. But you knowingly tried to befriend me again off the Minecraft server, knowing I wanted nothing to do with you and that Mythos wanted nothing to do with you.
Yeah, that's another thing that kind of baffles me, where, you know, ChaCha had a very noteworthy conflict with one of the Mythos members, which would be Apollo. You kind of have to assume at that point that her co-workers, the other people in Mythos, whether or not they're actually like good friends off of content creation, they're gonna kind of stick by each other just for pragmatic reasons. You kind of have to assume that if you have beef with one of them, you're probably not in the good graces of the rest of them. So the fact that you would try to become friends with one while you're publicly beefing with the other, it just feels weird to me.
You used a different voice and took advantage of the fact
So she used a different voice. That actually makes a lot of sense. I should have actually just looked at what was being said.
I couldn't recognize you to try and manipulate your way back in with Mythos, assumably to try and hurt Apollo even further.
Okay, nitpicky. Presumably, not assumably.
That is not behavior of someone who didn't know better, and it absolutely disgusts me. Please do not even utter Apollo's name again after everything you did to her, and please go live a life off the internet because clearly you cannot conduct yourself properly on here without hurting people. Chacha then responds, "That's not what I was doing at all."
Yeah. One thing you'll notice that, again, so much of what is going wrong with ChaChaChilla and the way that is being described over the course of this video, everything seems to get worse when that section of the video begins with ChaChaChilla responds. Again, most of this whole situation is her own fault. Just take the small L so you don't take a bigger L down the line.
People told me you were making a Minecraft server and to talk to you about it because I had already bought one. I have not done anything to Apollo since her PL when I attempted. Oh my god, ain't no way she's bringing up her again as a defense. This is ChaChaChilla's lawyers seeing she keeps tweeting and replying to everybody like this. Apollo then claps back and reveals what she claims are Chacha's other identities. 5 in total that she allegedly cycled.
5. I don't remember that. I only remembered hearing about the 2 past lives, the Charisse and Elisu. I mean, because, yeah, it's been a while since I remembered, thought about this whole thing. But, god damn, like, again, having 2 past lives that both kind of went away due to drama is bad enough. Having 5. Jesus.
Through between
Over the course of 3 years, what the fuck?
2022 and 2025. Having that many personas in such a short amount of time is a massive red flag.
Yeah, especially. I have 0 past lives. I've had slight rebrands. My name is a little bit different than it used to be. I used to actually do YouTube in the very early days. I did YouTube under my real name. Then I decided, I want to have the be ads. And then I went through some slight visual changes over the years. But I don't have any past lives, and I've been doing this longer than ChaCha has. So, yeah, having that many past lives in that short a time is like, holy shit.
Whatever apology you have to say, I will never forgive you. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a FLA. This wasn't you learning. This was revenge and sabotage. You had 5 lives and each one you didn't learn from. 2022 to 2025, Nia Chirize, Bani Alisu, Ame Watazagi.
Oh yeah, 97 followers. Yeah, that's not a lot.
Oh yeah, I knew that one too, girl. Trying to pretend to be nice to me and switching over to your bunny account to blame me for your brain damage. Oh.
Brain damage. I'm not even gonna say the joke. Like, that joke pretty much writes itself. I'm not gonna say it, but I'm thinking it.
On my birthday and Violet Sky VT.
Oh, okay. 1 follower, a private account with 1 follower. Okay.
And now ChaChaChilla, another lesson that you haven't learned from again. You'll do whatever it takes to see people hurt.
Actually, one thing I'm actually thinking of now, it's completely not relevant to this topic at all, but like, I wonder how much money ChaCha has spent on different models for each of these past lives, because, well, her model doesn't seem to be like ridiculously high quality. VTuber models are expensive. Like, there's a reason I don't have one yet, and that's because one that kind of meets the standards I would want is more money than I'm willing to spend at this point. That's why I decided, again, instead of getting a shitty VTuber model, I decided to get a good PNG tuber model. And I'm very happy with what I have. But she probably spent a decent amount of money on these different VTuber models, even if they're not like the most top of the line ones, because, again, VTube models are expensive.
Get any clout that you think you deserve. You're rotten inside and out. You ruin lives and hurt people. You will run again just like you always do. A cycle that you can't run from. Have fun being alone. However, ChaChaChilla categorically denies being Violet Sky VT. And then the other shoe drops.
And the funny thing is, by doing that, she basically confirms that the other 4 are hers.
Ria, another one of her victims, responds to her apology as well. As one of the people you have repeatedly hurt until I blocked you, I do not forgive you. First off, this is AI generated, so it's not even serious, so screw this BS lie. Secondly, you instantly go to victim blame us for being hurt by your actions. You ain't sorry for anything, you're only sorry you got caught. Thirdly, you have not reached out to me, Apollo, or anyone you have hurt to personally apologize to. This post is just to get the heat off of you from the angry mob, and it shows.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is kind of doing a knee-jerk apology when you're in the shit, that is a bit of a red flag, because it kind of comes across as damage control. Even if it's genuine, it will come across as damage control. And another thing is, yeah, a public apology that does not include a personal apology, if it's something that you specifically did to somebody else, that is also another indicative of damage control, where, I mean, there are instances where I've seen creators do things to other creators, fuck them over, and then apologize genuinely. Usually it comes with a private apology first, where they say, hey, I fucked up, I want to do this. And a lot of times they'll say, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to apologize publicly, but I wanted to say it to you directly first. That's how that often ends up. The ones that actually patch things up, that's kind of usually how it goes. But yeah, it's like, again, ChaCha just does not seem to have any sense of optics whatsoever, and it is completely fucking her over.
Another pointer is you made my cancer about yourself and basically told me, but did you die? After repeatedly harassing and stalking me for months
Like,
to
that's
bully
awful,
me in
but it's
group chat
hilarious.
about my health and making me feel bad. You eventually went so far you asked me to introduce you to a certain friend of mine, who I won't name because I want to keep them out of, to cloud farm him. When I told you to stop multiple times, you wouldn't stop. You kept going, kept throwing horrible words at my face to make me feel bad, and then make yourself a victim in the same breath. You don't even know how many times you made me cry and made me think maybe cancer should have off me, I guess, with your awful treatment of me. I don't care how sick you are. I am too, yet I don't use it as a weapon against others, or how not sorry you are. I won't forgive you. Generally stick that AI BS up your butt and leave already. You've been going on for years about this. Leave us alone and get help.
I will say one thing is, that is almost like a surgical execution right there. That was a really effective takedown post. Like, again, just ignoring like the emotional side of things, of what I think actually did or didn't happen, all that stuff, irrelevant. Just, I think of everything that's been said so far, this was the most damaging post to come out, at least as is represented in this video. Like, it just hits just the right balance of serious, emotional, and relatable. Like, again, just as somebody who appreciates good writing, this was she went for the jugular here, and I think she landed.
So tired, Chief. Needless to say, ChaChaChilla's apology was not received well by both the public and her victims. People immediately started clowning on her. So, of course, then the internet did what it does best, the full Sherlock Holmes speedrun. And netizens started digging up old clips of her and Violet Sky VT to compare
I'm actually curious. Let me see.
speedrun. And netizens started
That doesn't look like the most high quality VTuber model ever. But it's not a bad VTuber model at all. It actually looks pretty nice, all things considered. Obviously, there's no voice going on, so I don't know how well the facial tracking is. But I mean, this model actually... Well, again, it's not like a super expensive model. But I'm sure she dropped some money on this model. And it's a good-looking model, I think. So, yeah.
started digging up old clips of her and Violet Sky VT to compare the voices and see if ChaCha was lying once again.
Oh, and okay, again, before we get into the evidence here, devil's advocate, voice changers are a thing. Some people also just have similar voices, and even if you are not changing your voice, having effects applied to your voice for content creation purposes will change the sound of your voice. As I've mentioned before, listening to me talk in person is going to be different than hearing me speak on stream, and hearing me speak on stream is different than hearing me speak in a video, because the effects I apply to my stream are different than a unfiltered voice at all, and that's just because it sounds better on stream when I have some compression, when I have a little bit of equalization, when I have noise gate to prevent background noise. And then when I'm in making a video, I do things a little bit differently as well to make it sound like I'm speaking right next to you, that I'm right behind you. I add a normalize and limiter filter because that just makes it sound better for a voiceover context. So, the comparison, there could be things that change things. That's complete devil's advocate. Personally, based on the evidence presented, I do believe they're the same person, but I also do believe in being fair.
BTW, very cute. Thank you. I tried to be cute at all times, because if I don't be cute, then according to God, I have to die.
Okay, and that actually also just confirms that actually sheds some light on what I was talking about earlier. These do actually seem to be cheaper VTuber models that I was thinking of, just because the face tracking is not very good. So I'll say that much, where she probably didn't spend as much money as I was thinking she had spent, because, again, I mean, the actual art itself and the rigging and the tracking, all that stuff, those are different things that are going to cost different amounts. Having, like, bad tracking doesn't necessarily mean the model is cheap, but yeah, that tracking was not very good, so it probably was not very expensive to get that rigged up.
Times, because if I don't be cute, then according to God, I have to die.
You know what I hate? I hate how lightly English speakers use the term love. Because love is such a deep and passionate feeling, and you feel it toward those you really have affection and care towards.
That second one, I mean, those voices do sound a little different. That second one sounds like there's some significant modulation on it. Just based on how I know that technology affects the voice, that one did not sound completely natural. It sounded like there was some sort of electronic interference there. I can't necessarily say definitely. And there's also the fact that when VTubers have this kind of almost like lolly chibi voice going on, a lot of times they're putting it on. They're kind of essentially exaggerating parts of their voice, which makes it sound a little bit unnatural, but works for the context of, an anime VTuber. I'm thinking that second voice had a little bit of electronic changes done to it, so this is not enough that I would, if I heard both of them, I wouldn't necessarily say that one was definitely the other. And the speech patterns are neutral enough that I don't see enough there to definitively conclude it. So, but I'm
Love
curious
is such
what
a deep and
she'll
passionate
say.
feeling when you feel it toward those you really have affection and care towards.
And honestly, the voices sound quite similar. Not identical, it kind of feels like she's forcing a higher squeaky pitch in one of them.
Exactly.
Plus, they're not.
Yeah, that's pretty much my take. Where they sound similar, I'm not comfortable enough saying that on the voice alone that they're going to that's not enough for me to conclude they're the same person. Just that they have similar voices.
Talking in the same tone or context, so it's hard to be definitive on this. So I'm sitting here like, I mean, maybe it could be, I don't know.
You think they actually love
Okay, what?
Could be,
Wait.
I don't know.
Ooh. Okay, so I'm not going to really comment on the left one where... Okay, so I mean, I have my own thoughts on both of these topics of the videos, but like, I'm going to be real, like... Okay, so it could be that the titles are a little bit clickbaity, because when he's saying, cutting is okay, it is not, but it is not something that you should necessarily be ashamed for having done, because it's, it's self-harm is not a good thing. And it should not be, we should not pretend that it is a good thing. But also, I don't think people should be shamed for having gone through that. Okay, my gut feeling is that she's not saying it's a good thing to do, but that she is saying that it shouldn't be shamed. So I'm going to assume that's what she's saying, but also just that title is very clickbaity. And then, if you drop suicidal friends, you're a piece of shit. Not necessarily. One of the unfortunate realities is that significant mental health issues can cause people to act in a certain way to which they're just not good people to be around. It is difficult to say because, one thing is people do need support, but how do you do that when they're actively pushing people away? At some point, you do have to prioritize your own well-being and say, you know what, this person is just not a positive influence in my life. I'm going to step away because... Yeah, it's a difficult thing because there's no good answer there. But okay, I want to hear what Rima has to say.
You think they actually love you. You think they're your friend or your loved one or whatever. And then they leave your ass because you got too deep with them. You told them too much. You were secretly not really a perfect person they thought you were. How dare you? So they leave.
Okay.
Okay, Jesus Christ. First of all, that facial tracking is just absolutely awful. And that delivery is awful too. Like, holy shit. I will say I'm not the best delivery in a live setting. I think my delivery is pretty good in a voiceover setting because I will redo takes if I fuck it up. And I will edit things and just try to make it sound as good as possible. If you're making a video and you're just kind of speed running through things and mumbling, just do another fucking take. And another little secret of content creation is you don't have to do that all in the same take. It is possible, even once you get a handle on it, you can even do 2 takes of the same sentence and splice it together. If you know how to speak in such a way that lends itself to that editing style, you can actually speak in such a way that you can keep yourself consistent to the point where you can actually take parts of one sentence and splice it with parts of another sentence, and it sounds relatively natural. I do that in my videos. And when I tell people I do that in my videos sometimes, people are surprised because they say, I've never heard an obvious splice in your videos. Or if they do, they don't hear it often. That's because I know how to speak in a way where I mostly do this when I'm having long sentences. Ones where, I don't want to necessarily retake like a 7-second sentence over and over and over again. So I will speak in a way to where I will make a natural break point and just try to speak in a neutral way that is designed so that if there's a splice right there, it's gonna be okay. So I'm just saying, your voice does not have to sound like this when you're recording. You can do things to make yourself sound really good, even if you fuck up takes constantly and you can't just say that all in one breath without fucking up. There are ways to do that. Granted, seems to be a small creator overall. She does kind of have that style of speaking, so it's not like entirely she just might not be a great speaker on her own, but I don't know. I'm the kind of person I feel like take some pride in your content. Clearly in those clips she wasn't.
Well, when she's posting videos titled like that, I'm kind of sort of leaning towards, yeah, that's her. And finally,
I do kind of agree with Rima here, where she's saying she's kind of touching on the same topics in both personas. That does indicate another similarity between the two. I will still say that's not enough on its own to me to conclude that they're the same person. Because, you know, sometimes two people might have similar voices and might talk about similar topics. But I do get the point she's making.
Finally, if all of this wasn't chaotic enough, another creator named Alara received a message.
Well, I don't know her. I know of her. I've seen some of her stuff. She's a creator. Again, completely unrelated. I do kind of enjoy her content sometimes. She has good music in her videos. I will say that much. But also, she does kind of sound like she communicates via yelling, so it's always kind of like, am I like awake enough to deal with this content at the moment? But yeah, it is interesting to see all these creators, some of the ones I know of who have seen their content, seeing them in a context that is not them making content is very interesting to me. It's fascinating.
That tied this whole saga together. She received an anonymous tip with a screenshot of Bunny Alisu bragging that she'll get Alara to cover her, and basically a screenshot.
Right, I gotta read that. That's crazy. What timing? No, I'm gonna release everything. You shouldn't have threatened me. You shouldn't have supported blank. Despite clear evidence she's been slandering me. I'm posting it all. Unless you can convince me not to. Oh yeah, I'll have Alara cover it too, since I'm friends with her. Okay, that is also interesting to me because I don't follow Alara that closely, but I have seen some of her content. Drama does not seem to be in her space, so it wouldn't really make sense. Like, imagine you're watching my videos and I suddenly make a drama video. Even if it's somebody I'm close with, it would be weird because you're like, wait a minute. You usually do reviews and analysis of like anime and video games and hentai and that kind of thing. Me making a drama video would be fucking weird. I feel like it would also be really weird for Alara to make a drama video because that just doesn't seem to be the type of content she does. So kind of using that as a weapon seems weird to me.
Bunny Alisu bragging that she'll get Alara to cover her, and basically insinuates that she'll take her side since she's friends with her. Please don't cover her. Fail to understand this. This is intentional and full of malice. I was not your friend. You just constantly bothered me to get on Tea Time episodes. How dare you try to weaponize me against someone else?
Okay, granted. So Tea Time sounds like a podcast, and based on the name, it sounds like it's more drama related. So I might be completely incorrect with what I said earlier. So she might actually have a little bit more affinity with drama content. So, okay, I'll admit that I was probably wrong on that one. Again, as I mentioned, I don't follow Alara very closely. So it's just kind of her videos come across my recommended sometimes. So I sometimes watch them. And I like the music she has on during those videos.
This is not what I stand for, and it's certainly not what my news coverage represents either. I am not a mouthpiece for your agenda of hate against others, and I won't stand for even an insinuation that I can or will be used in that way. But things kept on escalating further when Kibi stepped in, sharing what happened during ChaCha's Bunny Alisu days. I need to say something because I found out that you're the same person who messed up with me and my close friends.
Again, it's just so much of this is the initial thing that ChaCha did to start this whole snowball was not that serious. However, she has skeletons in her closet, and she makes things worse for herself by continuing to comment on it, continuing to bring it back up. Again, it was just kind of... This is basically like how World War I started. And hear me out on this one, where the initial conflict that started World War I kind of was just a dispute between two countries where one political figure got assassinated by a terrorist group in another country. At most, that should have been like a war between the two of them that probably should have resolved relatively quickly since it wasn't that much of a geopolitical incident. It's just the web of alliances was kind of building up for so long that it was just kind of needed one spark to ignite a continent-wide war, and that's kind of what happened. This feels like kind of the same sort of thing, where it's not that she did something that awful in this moment. It's that so much of this has been brewing. She's slowly been kind of developing this web of enemies, of people she's fucked over, of things she's done. And then as soon as there was a real spark, everything kind of exploded all at once. Because again, the initial drama happened because she called out another VTuber for being supposedly ableist and talked shit about the person who owns the agency she was a part of. That could have blown over so easily. But then everything just kind of exploded.
You're not sorry. You've messed with so many people I care about and you've caused so much hurt in the past. Generally, get help this time. Stop falsely saying you will and actually do something for once with your life. I'm sick and tired of you creating rebrands, tricking some of us by using fake alter ego voices, and starting shit over and over again. Get off the internet for a good amount of time and seek a certified mental health professional. You ruined a very special moment for me when I got raided by Camilla by—
And again, I will say, the music that Rima has chosen for this, or her editor has chosen, I don't know if she edits her own videos or not, but it is over the top, and it makes it kind of funny, which I think it's honestly a positive, because as I mentioned before, VTuber drama is basically my reality TV. It's trashy, pointless stuff that I enjoy, and that I'm not necessarily proud that I enjoy it, but it is something I will just enjoy for the sake of it. Like, you know, it's getting my schadenfreude in. The music kind of adds to that effect. So I'm just having a good time with this. As much as people are having real emotions surrounding this, I am uninvolved so much that not only do I not know any of the people involved in that, I don't know of most of the people who are involved in this. I'm just pure entertainment at the moment, and the music is adding to that effect, and I kind of love it.
making it about you when you push yourself on my stream after the GGD collab, essentially lying we were good friends to take advantage of Camilla's Raiders' kindness so you could get free followers and subscriptions, which you didn't end up getting through your constant self-promoting while I was super overwhelmed. You shit-talked so much of the community to the point you tried coming to me with it, where I shut you down because you tried shit-talking my friends so you stopped talking to me altogether. You disgustingly have doxed people that I'm mutuals with.
Yeah, and again, as I said, I am generally cordial with anybody I interact with, regardless of anything surrounding them. I don't care who you're friends with, I don't care who you're enemies with, I don't really care too much what you've done, but doxing is behavior that I will not associate with. If you dox somebody, I'm stepping back, I'm cutting contact. That is going way too far.
You committed some actual heinous crimes if those allegations are also true. This isn't just about social drama, this is about you needing to actually self-reflect and either become a better version of yourself as an adult woman should, or continue to be blacklisted as well as reported to the authorities for the deeds you've done.
Yeah, and I will say, just in total fairness, just because I know this, this is a video kind of shitting on ChaChaChilla. I've been doing plenty of that throughout this reaction, and I know I've been yapping quite a lot throughout this video, but of course that's a feature, not a bug. But I actually, more than anything, I do kind of feel bad for Chacha. She seems to actually have some things going on in her head that she genuinely, just as I said before, she is not built for being a public figure. She does not have the personality to be able to handle these types of dynamics. I think being off of the internet would be very good for her. And she also just has some underlying issues that I feel like she needs to address, whether that's done through self-reflection or therapy. I don't know. I'm not qualified to speak on that. But more than anything, I just feel bad for her because this behavior of hers seems pathological. Like, it seems like she's not totally in control of herself. Doesn't negate any of the bad she's done, but I don't know. I find it hard to actually hate her. And I mean, granted, or hard to actually dislike her, to actually have any negative feelings for her besides just feeling bad for her, because I don't know. This feels like almost, again, this is not going to be the most accurate comparison, but just kind of work with me here. It's like imagining walking down the street of a city and like there's like the homeless man shouting slurs at you. you don't have to like that behavior, but it's hard to dislike the person behind it because you can tell that their behavior is clearly influenced by something else going on in their life. That their situation is bad, their mental health is bad, everything about them is falling apart. So while you don't like them, it's hard to dislike them, and you just feel bad for them and hope they get better. That's kind of how I feel about ChaChaChilla. I feel like she's just not built for the internet, and she has other issues she needs to address. I hope that... I don't think it's going to happen, but I hope that she takes this situation, because this is easily the biggest drama she's been in. But I hope she takes this as a lesson, saying, hey, I need to step back, I need to figure my own shit out, just kind of come to a healthy understanding of myself, and find a path forward that's actually going to be fulfilling for me, because I don't think the internet is the way forward for her. And I hope she manages to reflect and live a reasonably healthy life moving forward. Because, again, this is just kind of more sad than anything.
Get help, Bunny. I mean it. No bullshitting around anymore. We're both autistic, but you're not a 12-year-old just learning her first social cue lesson. And she attaches some...
And, okay, that actually brings up an interesting point where, when it comes to autism, one thing is that it is essentially, in many situations, especially social scenarios, autism is a bit of a debuff. But just because you're autistic and don't understand social cues doesn't mean you actually can't learn a little bit. It'll never be quite as natural as existing as like somebody who is not autistic, because a lot of the social cues just kind of make sense if you're not autistic. But if you are autistic, you can learn some of them. You can learn certain things. Like you are essentially able to almost create the dialogue trait. For example, I mentioned I am probably autistic. I have a lot of issues with social settings. I have trouble with certain social scenarios. That being said, surface level conversation is something I'm pretty good at. It's something I've learned where whenever I've had to talk to people for work, I don't have any issues with that because, well, for example, I used to work in a supermarket. I used to run the back room of a supermarket, and I would deal with the vendors. So in a supermarket, not everything actually comes from the supermarket's warehouse. Things like the soda deliveries, the bread is a big one. Things like soda, bread, a lot of other stuff, like chips is another big one. Those don't actually come from the warehouse. Those come directly from the manufacturer. They have their own people who deliver it, and they stock the shelves. There's whole business dealings around that. So it's not all from the warehouse, but I had to interact with those people. Those were the people I was the point of contact with those people. So I talked to a lot of people for my work. Surface level stuff, I figured out kind of the playbook for how to interact with these people and not seem weird. Despite my own difficulties with that, it's something I was able to figure out. And even just in general, just pleasant surface level conversation, it's easy to figure out. You can figure out that kind of stuff. You can know what kind of behavior is completely inappropriate. Being autistic is not an excuse. And even you can develop like coping mechanisms. For example, a lot of autistic people have trouble with eye contact. One thing you can do is you can fake that, believe it or not. It won't be quite as natural as a regular person doing regular eye contact because you won't always know when to start it and when to stop it, but you can stare at somebody's forehead or their nose. It simulates eye contact. It looks just like eye contact, but it's not eye contact. So there are things you can learn even if you're autistic. Like I said, when you have a neurodivergence, it is not society's job to accommodate you. It's your job to deal with that. Unless you're significantly impaired to the point where you actually genuinely need help. And Hecht MT, thank you for the follow.
Very telling screenshots where Bunny Elisu is DMing this person saying, yeah, fair, but I've tried ignoring this, but it didn't go away, I don't know. And this is why talking about situations like these actually matters. Most of the time, each victim only has one piece of the puzzle, just their slice of the story. But
I'm not reading all
with
that.
constant rebrands, people like ChaChaChilla get to cover their tracks and start fresh every time. When they finally get outed publicly, it becomes one of the only ways for everyone to compare notes, connect the dots, and realize just how much harm has been
I think these
done.
are all things
It lets
that we've
all of those
already
scattered pieces
read, so I'm
finally
not going to
come
read them again.
together. And when netizens thought this situation was finally over and done with, ChaChaChilla came out with another Google Doc, impetuously titled Coming Forth.
Google Docky 2.0 again. Again, it's funny how the only Google Dockies that are happening in this situation are ones by the person getting shit on. That's usually the other way around. It's kind of funny.
Her doc starts by apologizing for ad-free and Flork, saying she took things way too far with them. You don't say. Chacha then writes that in early May 2023, she was going through an intense period of depression. And on May 6th, she made another S-side attempt. She claims that during this time, she tried to reach out to Apollo, whom she was close with at the time, by sending her a S-side note. And after surviving the attempt, she panicked and tried to have the email deleted by reaching out to her partner. Both Apollo and her partner initially showed her support.
So yeah, and I will say, just again, in total fairness, I don't necessarily think this is an unbelievable story right there, because, again, having dealt with friends who have gone through similar things, I have not personally, so this is all secondhand. That is, for all the things I've dealt with, that suicidality is not one of them. But I have had multiple friends who have had very severe issues with depression. They do, when they're in crisis, you don't think rationally. So I can believe that she kind of knee-jerk sent a suicide message to her friend who was Apollo at the time, and then kind of panicking when the attempt didn't actually go through, because that's another thing. A lot of times when people are going through these things, they completely have a different perspective on things once they pass the point of no return, essentially. When they actually make the attempt, a lot of times that's when they realize, oh shit, I don't actually want to die. And then things change, and they might panic afterwards and try to recover from that. So I do fundamentally think that is I don't know if I believe it, but I believe that that story is believable. So that is something I just want to say.
However, according to Chacha, one day later, when she tried to join their Discord server to hang out, she was blocked by Apollo, her partner, and 2 mutual friends. Since Chacha says she had only shared her attempt with Apollo, the insinuation here...
Okay, so I did reach out from 2 alternate accounts. Even if what she's saying is true, that's not a good sign. Don't do that. If somebody has made it clear they don't want to interact with you, don't try to fucking force it. It doesn't end well.
Here is that Apollo told the others that she had faked her S-side for attention. Then she says what is arguably the craziest sentence. I want to be clear, I did reach out from 2 alternate accounts. Yeah. This was...
And I will say, if nothing else, that sentence right there makes me believe that ChaChaChilla is being truthful when she says she's autistic. Because you have to be pretty fucking autistic to think that's a normal thing to say, and to not realize that's going to sound really bad. Because, again, even autistic people I know wouldn't say something like that. They would take that shit to the grave.
Not meant to harass anybody. I was overwhelmed, confused, and trying to understand what had happened.
And also, I will say, just to me, this sounds like really psychotic, just because having 2 alternate accounts that you interact with people with, for me, I don't have what I would consider to be alternate accounts. I have, like on YouTube specifically, I have 1 account that I use for viewing. That is the account that was the first account I ever created. I don't upload on it. It's just for viewing and subscribers. That's my personal viewing account. Then I have my, the account, if you're watching this on stream, the account you're watching right now, that's my main creative account. And then I have a couple of other things just for stuff I've made outside of that. Like, again, if you're watching on YouTube after the fact, you're watching it on the highlights channel, which is meant for stream clips and stuff like that. I also have another creative channel that I have not uploaded on in forever, but that was meant for things that don't fit into my main channel content. I don't have alternate accounts to interact with people like this. That seems just so strange to me. That is weird behavior.
And why somebody I had trusted had cut contact with no explanation. I did not mean to harass anybody is crazy. She then blames her autism for misinterpreting the signs. Well, at least that checks out on our bingo card.
Yeah, and again, that's another thing where autism can be an explanation, but it's not an excuse. Where I think when it comes to with autism, it can be a good way to explain a misunderstanding between people, saying, hey, Like if you misread what somebody says to you and like implies, if you assume somebody's like attacking you when they're not actually doing that, or just, again, there's just a miscommunication there that can say, saying, by the way, I'm autistic can be an acceptable inclusion in an apology, saying, hey, I reacted poorly, but that's because I misunderstood the situation. There are ways to do that. This seems like a way of deflecting as opposed to actual genuine explanations.
But she later confirms that she began hearing rumors that she had faked an S-side attempt, which she claims led her to attempt S-side again on May 9th. This time, she says she almost succeeded and required hospitalization, including medical care and time in a psych ward. She also claims she experienced temporary hypoxia-related speech issues and add that she has a hospital records to confirm this.
Okay, if I'm remembering correctly, hypoxia is like an oxygenation thing, so she might have... Okay, I'm not even gonna go down that line of logic. I don't want to speculate on what she may or may not have actually done, like physically speaking. Because again, it's one of those things where I'm not even gonna speculate on whether or not I believe what she's saying here, because again, people making attempts on their own life is a very serious thing. Even people who cause problems like ChaCha might actually be going through these things. It's not necessarily out of the realm of possibility that she actually had a mental health crisis. I'm not going to say she didn't. So, yeah, I'll take it for what it is. She's not the most reliable narrator, but at the same time, that doesn't mean she's necessarily lying. But at the same time, it does seem like she's kind of trying to do damage control more than anything. As I've said multiple times in this video already, just take a break, back off the internet for a while, let things cool down, and then address whatever needs to be addressed at the moment, which is not most of this, by the way. Most of this stuff does not need to be addressed. She can just move on. And also, if she moves on, takes a break, and then genuinely changes her behavior so that she doesn't get into these dumb dramas anymore, that alone would go a long way. So yeah.
But then she doesn't show any. Over a year later, ChaCha becomes aware of allegations that were still being made about her, specifically claims that she had plotted revenge porn and doxed Apollo. She clarifies that she had never leaked anyone's personal information, legal name, or address, nor did she ever send explicit photos. After some digging, it appears
I want to read the rest of that. She doesn't say she never sent, she says I was never sent explicit photos. That's probably a typo. I did not post or distribute anything of that nature. Okay, that clarifies it. These claims have had heavy consequences for me, including being blacklisted from opportunities. When I attempted to clarify the situation with the company involved, I was told the screenshots were fake, and I was threatened with legal action. When I asked for proof that certain deleted messages could be recovered, I did not receive any. Also, a former member of the company, Hades, contacted me from an alternate account to explain that they were not allowed to speak with me because of the situation, even further suggesting internal communication was influenced by misinformation. Okay, I don't really know what to think about all that. Again, based on what she's saying, based on her track record, I'm leaning towards she's not necessarily being truthful, but I don't know enough to really say.
Address, nor did she ever send explicit photos. After some digging, it appears that ChaChaChilla's actions toward Apollo were far more invasive and malicious than what was publicly known. As early as February, Apollo's debut month, ChaChaChilla allegedly doxed both Apollo's past identity and her genmate, with the harassment continuing for the rest of the year. In a particularly disturbing incident just days before TwitchCon, ChaChaChilla reportedly leaked explicit, not safe for work content from Apollo directly onto Apollo's own Discord server. This happened right as Apollo had been preparing to show her face publicly at the event, and ChaChaChilla also sent these images to random people in Apollo's community, claiming to be her #1 fan. And
okay, again, for total fairness, total clarity, from what I understand, this is not that like she acquired illicit images of Apollo. It's that she essentially acquired images that Apollo had made public in the past. It's still really shitty what she did, especially right around a face reveal, which could just cause problems. But again, I don't think it qualifies as revenge porn because, again, it's like, let's say you create an OnlyFans and you put content on there and people see that content, it gets spread around. That's different from having an intimate encounter with somebody, recording them, and then releasing that when it was supposed to be private. So again, total fairness, still a shitty thing to do. I do feel like it might be slightly misrepresented.
Uploaded them to random websites without consent, a clear violation of privacy intended to intimidate and humiliate her. It's further alleged that she used fake alt accounts to repeatedly tag and harass Apollo online, and even attempted to collect more of her personal information. Early in their interaction, Apollo had commissioned ChaChaChilla and, at the time, had shown her face privately to her mod team, something ChaChaChilla had access to. The two had known each other for a few months, and this commission turned out to be a major point of regret for Apollo. Apollo has stated that she was always mentally prepared for the possibility that her real name and face could be leaked if ChaChaChilla was ever pushed far enough.
Yeah, and that's another thing where if you're concerned about your privacy, you got to be really careful about who you share your name and face with. Personally, my name and face are both out there, so I'm not too concerned about that, even though I don't make it up like publicize who I am in real life. And I try to make it so, like, even though people do know my name, people do know or can find out what I look like, I still do make it a point to not really publicize who I am outside of content creation. So I do kind of, I do understand that perspective, even if I have made my information available. But I also do try to hide certain elements about me, like, I tell you what I do for work, but I don't tell you where I work. I don't even give you any clues so you can figure out who I work for, anything like that. I don't even give specifics on where I live. You know that I live in New Jersey. That's about as specific as I'm willing to get. There's a lot of people in New Jersey, so it's hard to figure out where I live. So that kind of thing. So if you're more concerned about privacy than me, like with your name and your face, all that stuff, only share it to a select few people, and generally only if you have to. For me, if I was that kind of person, the only time anybody would know my name is if it was needed for business dealings, and the only time anybody would know my face is if I was planning to meet them in person. So, not criticizing Apollo too much for that, because I do think she, is the victim here, but at the same time, you gotta, if privacy is your concern, you gotta take it seriously.
The only reason it may not have happened, she believes, is because ChaChaChilla simply forgot. But even without that final act, Apollo must have been living in fear and constant vigilance, knowing that this violation could happen at any moment from someone she once trusted, no less. But ChaChaChilla remains adamant that she's innocent throughout her doc, claiming that these accusations have damaged her reputation and led her to being blacklisted from opportunities. However, as we'll see later on in her document, the truth is something much more different and darker. She then explains how she tried to clarify the situation with the VTuber agency Apollo was involved with, Mythos. But what this actually means is that she tried to get Apollo fired from the agency over this situation, just like she previously attempted with Sock's VTuber agency. In this case,
yeah, that's another reason I would, even if, let's say I become a VTuber, because eventually I do plan on getting a VTuber avatar or VTuber model. Once it makes financial sense to actually do so, that's when I plan on doing that. I don't plan to ever join an agency, even no matter what the business propositions are, just because I don't want anybody to have somebody over me that they could potentially go to if they have issues with me. Like, I don't want to deal with that shit.
She was told that the screenshot evidence she provided was fake and was even threatened with legal action by Mythos.
And okay, I will say also, let me see. I'm aware Apollo has been spreading rumors about me. I would like to discuss these as they're false. I have screenshots to back it up. I know Apollo is saying I faked suicide attempt that happened over a year ago. However, I have hospital records indicate this is not the case and screenshots showing she spread rumors about me. Hello, after an internal investigation, we have determined that you've been circulating fake DM screenshots featuring our talent Apollo. This constitutes fraud and defamation and is a serious legal matter. Apollo is a character owned by our company. That means you are not only defaming the talent behind Apollo, but our entire company as well. We demand that you cease and desist immediately with this unacceptable behavior. If this continues in any matter, we will protect ourselves and our talent to the fullest extent of the law. Okay, so honestly, I think that's a reasonable response. Basically says, hey, our investigation says that these screenshots are not real. Whether they are or not is almost kind of irrelevant. It's like basically their investigation has not been able to corroborate the existence of those screenshots. And basically because ChaCha, or as Bunny Alisu, is saying, hey, this is what's happening. You're spreading this information. This is one of our talents. This is our IP. You need to stop it, or this could become an issue. This is a reasonable response to accused defamation.
Evidence she provided was fake and was even threatened with legal action.
And also just the idea is that they're basically saying, hey, stop spreading this around, and this is the end of it. That's kind of what they're saying, which is, again, reasonable, saying, I don't want to make this a big issue. This is a PR nightmare. That's fair.
By Mythos. And her proof of Apollo slandering her, a single screenshot of Apollo talking to another VTuber, warning her about Bunny Elisu. In that message, Apollo tells her to be careful because Bunny is a liar and very manipulative, and that she lied about attempting. However, plot twist, shortly after her document was released, haters...
Oh, I gotta see the community note.
However, plot twist, shortly...
This document contains doctored images used to perpetuate a false narrative created by the user to avoid responsibility for their own actions. Okay.
After her document was released, haters went to Twitter to reveal that the name censored in that screenshot was hers, and that this was a completely doctored and fake screenshot. Which does explain why ChaCha spends a large portion of the document showing screenshots between her and Trey, who we've mentioned earlier in the video, where they go back and forth arguing about a method for deleting screenshots. Basically, ChaCha had reported to Mythos that Apollo was telling people not to hang out with her and was actively blacklisting her. Mythos ends up checking Hades and Apollo's discords, finds nothing, and then comes back to tell ChaCha that the screenshot she mentioned doesn't exist and accuses her of making it up. You guys can pause the screen to read the screenshots here. I'm not going to read all of them, but the gist of...
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to read all of these. This has already gone way longer than I expected it to, so I'm just going to kind of let it play out. If Rima is saying it's not super important to know exactly what's being said, I'm going to take her word for it. I just don't want this to go on for another 4 hours.
It's just Trey and her debating whether the screenshots are fake or not, with her threatening to release a Google Doc and Trey telling her he has a way of recovering the deleted messages. Personally, I think he's kind of trolling her here with some fake extension just to get her to give up on the whole obsession that she has on...
Yeah, okay, so it could go either way. There's no, like, built-in feature to recover messages as far as I know. The messages probably still exist on the Discord side of things, like on their servers, because usually when you delete something on social media, it's not actually deleted because it's just deleted from public view, essentially. So Discord probably still has the messages. It is also possible that they could have kind of software automatically like archive everything that's being said, and because they're a corpo and that they kind of own their own IPs, they don't actually let the creators have their own IPs. That does actually make sense to me because they would want to be able to have a log of everything that's been said between their talent and other people. So that would not surprise me, but it also wouldn't surprise me if he's just making shit up.
Apollo, but that's just my assumption. The other screenshots she posts as evidence are just her telling one of her friends about the situation, and the same doctor screenshot she's been parroting around. What makes it worse is that her friend is clearly trying to talk her down the entire time, telling her this is a terrible idea and that she seriously needs to let it go and please stop. So it's really odd that she chose to keep those screenshots and include them in the Google document. Honestly,
I do think that kind of goes to what I was saying earlier, where it's not necessarily that everything she's doing is malicious, it's that she's deluded and believes her own delusions.
Pretty sure these screenshots just make her look even worse. Then she shows screenshots of a mutual friend of Apollo and her who was told by her mods incriminating things about her. But when you actually read the screenshots, you realize there's literally no connection between these mods and Apollo. The messages are from a mutual friend of Apollo, not a mod. The mod in question isn't even part of this conversation. And to make it even more clear, the friend takes the time to reassure ChaCha that she's still her friend, and even explains that it was her own mod's decision to kick ChaCha from the server, not Apollo's, because other people had come forward with reports of ChaCha doing bad things. And then the document just ends abruptly after this set of screenshots. It makes no sense. The fact that someone thought this was solid evidence is astounding. But then again, this is coming from the girl who tried to prove her hospital photo was real by writing the wrong dates on a post-it. And what comes next is where things seriously start to cross the line from drama into obsession. And I'm not exaggerating when I use the word obsession here. Apollo is someone ChaChaChilla has been heavily hyperfixated on for literal years at this point. And the clearest proof of that is the Google Doc that she released on...
Yeah, again, that's one of those things where that's why parasocial behavior is dangerous.
Apollo years ago. One day, ChaCha's current doc accidentally reveals that she had already posted an older document in the past. And this is mentioned in her conversation with Trey. So I went ahead and dug up her now deleted Google Docie, and guess what? It's practically a rehash of the new one she just posted.
Yeah, I'm not going to read the whole things, but like... Yeah, actually, yeah, those are very similar. Wow.
Posted. There isn't even any new information that she added in her recently posted document. And the saddest part of it all, ChaCha was actually a successful, not safe for work voice actress. She had a career, a following, and real momentum, but she threw it all away. Her reputation.
I wouldn't say she necessarily had a career with those numbers, but like she was definitely on a trajectory where she could have potentially been a real figure in the space.
Her future opportunities, everything, just to keep going after Apollo in this endless, obsessive loop she refuses to let go of. Insane. And honestly, what gets me the most about this entire situation isn't even the drama, it's the pattern. Every single time someone tries to force a narrative or weaponize a call out or rewrite what really happened, the truth eventually drags itself to the surface like a horror movie monster crawling out of the swamp. And in this case, ChaChaChilla didn't just leave breadcrumbs, she dumped the whole loaf, the recipe, and the bakery's tax records. She exposed herself more thoroughly than anyone could have ever could. One call out turned into an identity unmasking, one lie turned into 5, and one tweet spiraled into a meltdown of defamation threats and lawsuit. So
yeah, again, that's what I was saying the whole video. She had a small issue at the start, just kept making it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
So at the end of the day, you can reinvent yourself as many times as you want, but if you won't change the behavior behind the model, eventually every mask will slip. And when it does, the internet will be right there with the screenshots. And I'll be there with my bingo card completed. Bingo! And that's all I've got for today's video. If you've enjoyed the deep dive, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a future upload. Quick shout out before you go. Don't forget that I'm now an ultra rare TCG card with Rift Runner. If you want the chance to pull me or my mascot Con, head over to riftrunnertcg.com
and
I'll let the
plug
for 10% off. And if you want extra content, reactions, and unfiltered commentary, the Patreon is in the description. And if you want to hang out with the community, join the Discord at discord.gg/Rima. Thanks for watching, and for the love of God, please never fake a hospital visit for sympathy. The ER nurses are tired, and honestly, so am I. So take a breath, stay curious, and be kind, everybody. You also stated
Okay, so I think that's pretty much all that really matters for this video. But yeah, ultimately good video. Yeah, I know I joked, calling her female Muujin, but she has her own takes on things. She has her own approach to the topic she covers. I think they both have interesting things to say. I really enjoyed this video. Even as somebody who was familiar with this going in, I feel like I had a new perspective and learned a few new things from watching this video. So overall, good video. Once again, those watching on stream, video link is in the chat. And those watching after the fact, I know it's been a long one, so I appreciate you if you stayed with me for this long. But those watching after the fact will be able to get the original link in the description. So please do check that out. So we always support the original creators around here. All right, and so for those of you watching the video after the fact, come back in a couple days. We'll have another video for you. Thanks for stopping by.